Clock is quite something.
I think it's weird that the image is flipped
For us.
for us.
Oh,
right?
it's we're live now, but it's speaker tracking, I think.
Right.
Or it can.
Right.
You'll see me playing with it.
Oh, it's.
So right now, I didn't really want that on. Okay.
Okay, welcome everybody. It's February, Black History Month. And welcome to the regular Tuesday meeting of the Corporation of the City of Nelson. And I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Kootenay, the Silks, and the Sinixt people, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. I received no late items from anyone. If I could have an adoption of the agenda as circulated, moved by Councillor Payne, seconded by Councillor Page, seconded by Councillor Lockenberg. All those in favor? And that carries. And we have adoption of minutes for the minutes of November the 5th, December the 3rd, and January the 7th, 2025. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Lockenberg. All those, any errors or omissions, councillors? Seeing none, all those in favor, and that carries. Okay, so we have a workshop to start us off with this today by our own Amy Mooney, who's going to tell us about the pay by phone new app. Is it an app?
Correct.
Okay. I don't understand this technology stuff, but anyways, over to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I'm just going to give a quick update on the Pay by Phone. It is an app, as well as you can go on the website. Start paying for parking. So we know we have it in the parkade right now, which is all first come, first serve. Then we transitioned back in July, and now this is kind of the next step as we roll out to the on-street meters. So how did we get here? This process began way back early 2020 when we went out for the RFP process, working out some contract details, and then starting with the transition in the parkade. So we moved from those monthly users because we weren't seeing the utilization that we wanted in the parkade, although they were being paid for. It just wasn't being used as a parkade. So then we went for August and September, we tested the app, the reporting capabilities, and also how the transactions worked in a confined area, which was super helpful. Bylaw got used to verifying payments on their end of it, and many residents became accustomed to the new app. So currently the parkade is bringing in consistent revenues from what we saw previously. All the utilization is slightly up, which is super exciting. That's kind of one of the main reasons we wanted to transition. And having technology stats for us, easily we can see that even in December, our slowest month for the parkade, probably because of holidays, we still saw 96 new pay by phone users. So that's residents that have downloaded the app for the first time and their first transaction is in our parkade, which is pretty cool. So as months go by, we're hoping to see that trend really increase as we go into the on-street meters and as we get the communication out that that parkade is still first come, first serve. And if people are looking for other alternatives when they're commuting to work or if they're staying for long periods, that's available to them. So payments can be made through a web browser or by downloading the app in the App Store or by calling the phone number that's listed on all of the signs in the parkade. That will be the same for all of the on-street meters. In October, we started the back end of the on-street meters. This involved discussing zones and unique attributes to over 700 stalls we have across the downtown core or throughout the city. For example, we discussed whether downtown area would be one meter zone, all having kind of a 2-hour max. We would get limited to what we can do with one zone. And after consulting with some pay-by-phone implementation team as well as internal staff, we decided to kind of divide it up by block as well as what side of the street you're on. So this will allow us to block off streets for city work or for special events. And it will also give us reporting details of hotspots and where people are in the city. It is based on that half block, you would say, but also there will be some individual stalls that are unique because we've got a mixture of 2-hour limits or 5-minute meter stalls. So those will have to have individual numbers, just so that we can keep those consistent. So in January, we received our shipment of decals. You've all got an example on your desk here. So that's what's going to go on our current meters that are there. And then we finalized some testing for the on-street meters, making sure that it works for Bylaw as well. And I'm excited to say that we're ready to go live. So Adriana, our Bylaw manager, will be working with her team to install these decals across the city. Hopefully later this week. We do have to be a little bit weary of the weather. We can't install them when it's -10, but if we get some nice sunny days, we'll be able to do kind of sections as the sun shines. We kind of want to hover around that 0 mark when we install them, just so they don't peel off or they're not too wet. And then I'll be working with Donna to do some social media posts to promote them, get the word out there. Although we did kind of soft launch it, and we see that some people are already finding it out. If they have their location services activated on the app, it does prompt you to the right code, which is nice. And then what does that mean for the future? It gives us the ability to easily add paid parking areas throughout the city, just simply by going through pay by phone instead of adding physical meters. So how to use pay by phone, I'll quickly buzz through. It's 3 simple steps. So each parking meter will display a unique code that you can input into the app or on the paybyphone.com to pay for their parking. It's important that residents ensure they're using the correct code because they're tied to the restrictions on that stall, whether it's 15 minutes, whether it's 2 hours, 4 hours, or a daily stall. And having the wrong number input into the app would result in failure to pay or a ticket if you're incorrect in that way. Number 2, you enter your parking duration. So there's no transaction cost to the residents. However, there is a transaction cost to the city, and we opted to absorb that with the increase in fees last year. So there will be a minimum purchase of 1 hour when you're parking through the app. If residents choose that they only want to park for less than an hour, we just recommend that they continue using the coins to do it that way. And then 3, you choose your method of payment. So Pay by Phone accepts Visa, MasterCards, and Visa debits. So why use Pay by Phone? The app is coin free. There's no more need for digging in your middle console or your bag to pull out coins, which is super nice. It'll be great for tourists that come by. I know last weekend I saw a plate from Ohio and they were digging around. They didn't have any Canadian coins, so I saw the mom and daughter and they just were like, well, we'll be quick. And so it's, we're missing out revenue there and they're risking getting a ticket. So it is nice to offer a different way of payment. It also offers reminders when parking time is about to expire. These reminders are offered for free through the app. However, if residents would like to receive SMS text messages for confirmations and reminders, they can also set that up through the app. There is a fee for those optional text messages to the resident. Lastly, the app offers a convenient way of extending parking from anywhere in town as long as you have internet connection and the extension is within the maximum time limit of that stall. So if you've already paid for 2 hours, it won't let you extend. But if you've only paid for 1 hour in a 2-hour stall, you're okay to extend another hour. So we highly encourage residents to download the app through the App Store or through Google Play.
Questions, Councilor Woodward?
Thank you, Mayor. So that's interesting about how this will play out in terms of people are going to be way more aware of how much time they have and when their time runs out. So there's a possibility that parking ticket revenue could go down. So I mean, it's a good thing for the citizens because they can track that much more than just kind of, I can't remember, about 20 minutes or a half an hour, right? But I would imagine that, I mean, it's very efficient. I could see that it will be much more aware of their time, and our parking revenue will go down, our parking ticket revenue will go down. So it'll be interesting to see that happens.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I know already when we increase the rates, I think the number of tickets have slightly decreased because people are more aware because they're higher cost.
Right.
I think we always want to go with the informing and the
sure.
compliance route first rather than making money off of fines, so.
But then also there is an element too of having the parking move, right? Because people are more aware of
Turnover.
the turnover, which is what we, can I remember correctly, it was you want 80% full, 20% open?
Yeah, so it was like one stall per block that you want open.
Very cool, thank you very much.
Councilor Payne,
I don't think I had anything.
did you stick up your hand?
No,
Okay.
I'm formulating, but
Councilor Panero.
So just to be clear, everywhere that is currently coins will stay that way as well. This is just an add-on, a replacement. Perfect. Awesome.
Now, Councilor Payne, my apologies.
okay, so the thought I had about tickets, and I agree with you 100%, education and compliance is what we're going for. But will there also be something in the app that will let the bylaw officers know where there are expired meters?
No, not that I'm aware of. Because they can't tell whether or not a vehicle is still parked there, right? We can, yeah, and
Okay,
so on.
okay,
So it will never be 100% complete.
Yep. Yep, just interested. And it's not like I can have an account. So when I download the app, I have an account that I can just attach my credit card to that so that every
Yep,
time I use it, perfect.
Yeah,
That's
if you
what
download the app, create a
That's what I
account.
wasn't clear about reading for this, but I'll sign up to the app and.
If you put in your license plate, it will remember the license plate. If you have multiple cars, you can name them, have
Okay.
photos on there. You have multiple cars, you have a business one or a personal one.
Okay, thanks. Wow.
Well, that just got even more confusing to me, sorry.
It's gonna be
When
very.
when do I stop packing around toonies in my car?
Always pack toonies.
Okay.
There's always room
So
for
there's
kids.
always gonna be ability to put money in the meter? No,
In our current meters, yes, we don't have a
Okay.
plan to take those out.
But there is the element, if you want to have areas that are not currently metered, you could use this and not have to put in physical
Right.
codes, right? So
Right.
that's very positive.
Kind of gives me an idea, playing around with the app. Like, could we offer our parking services to private organizations? Maybe take a cut? Well, I'm just looking at all the potentially available parking that's currently private. That, let's say they wanted to start charging for parking, we could offer that service.
Yeah, we could, in theory, create a new code, a code specific to their lot. Yes, there would be an
could
administrative
you
cost.
just highlight randomly where we have all this
Across from Best Western.
private parking? Oh, okay, so
That's Western parking lot.
Ryan Martins, he owns that, okay, thanks.
We did that, obviously, our bylaw officers would have to monitor it, and do we find them, I don't
Yeah,
know,
let's see, why not?
how we would,
Why would
yeah,
we-
we'd have to look at that.
We have we have a relationship at the NDCC,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
With the RDCK for
Yeah.
patrolling their lot.
I'm thinking the chamber down there.
Oh, no, there's, if you look at the parking study, there's significant amount of parking out there,
Walmart.
down the lanes and stuff like that.
Joking about that. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Councilor Lockenberg is like, can we get AI in there?
Yeah,
There'll be little cameras on the
I'm
posts
just
that
looking for ways. potential
find
revenue.
you automatically if you're still there.
Very cool.
Councilor Payne.
Just from a tourist perspective, will it stop you from paying for parking outside of our?
Like the 9 to 5? Yeah. Yes, it will. It won't, if you pay for parking at 4 o'clock, it will suggest that after 5 is free.
Stepping into the future.
Or at least into the present.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe that's a better way of putting it. Stepping into the current present.
Anyone else have any other questions, concerns?
Easy his presentation.
Like eventually this will go out across, like when we have to replace the meters, like this will then become this will be the new standard.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth a conversation for what happens now as we get, meters need to be replaced. They're expensive pieces of hardware, if we start to see that we're getting very little coin in them anyway, then something to think about.
Councillor Lockhart.
Not so much for Amy, but maybe Chris or Kevin. The boat club with the gate at the Prestige, when is that, can we get that taken down? And when is that coming down?
Yeah, so, it's definitely been on the radar for a while. They do have an agreement with us. I think that's on Sarah's plate to review that, and really it's up to council whether you want to continue to renew that or not. And so, we will bring that back to you. Sarah, any sense of?
I'm looking for the microphone, which we don't need. No, I have no idea off the top of my head, when, but it's certainly something that we can look
So we do have-
look at.
We do have this new legislative assistant that's really bringing lots of our contracts up to date, so
Yep,
that's
that's
one
one
we
of them.
could certainly get her to
Yep.
have a look at.
Thank you.
So that leads to a question.
Councillor Page.
Is there flexibility within our new system to provide, a parking pass per se to a certain area? Like if there was an arrangement with the boat club for a certain number of plates and they would be permitted to be able to park down there and other people would receive a ticket. They weren't.
Not with the options that we've explored by phone currently.
Right. Okay.
So, we do have a manual system. We all have parking passes, so when we're at a meter, we're not using pay by phone, so we sell them to contractors, et cetera, when they're doing work on buildings, et cetera, so it doesn't sound like it's part of this app, but it is a system we have in place now, so it's not like you couldn't do it.
Yeah, fair enough. That's good.
Like we have two systems. We have the pay by phone, which is the user interface. We have Bylaws software, T2, if anybody cares. It's compliance software that one will say if someone has a parking pass or not. That could be leveraged to do parking passes. I would
And
think
that's
through
where
that.
we enter all of the current residential parking passes as well, so that Bylaw knows it's connected to your license plate.
Okay.
So maybe just a different, not this one.
Might be interesting in a year or two to see how those two come together. So there's less tools to juggle if you're bylaw.
Pay by phone does link live, so they're the same handheld, so they are linked on the back end.
Okay.
So from a bylaw perspective, there's not really a change. And then entering the license plate, it says either it's paid by the pay station through T2 or paid by phone. They can't tell a difference, but
Okay. Good.
see that it's paid.
Glad to hear that.
Anybody else? Okay, you're right.
Thank you.
Wow,
Thanks.
thank you very much. So something new and exciting going on in the city.
It's the new clock.
It's new,
Keeping us on time.
okay, it's the new clock. I'm sort of thinking like, I was thinking I was gonna get the sunburn on my neck, but it's actually, I think Kevin is gonna have the sunburn on his neck. So moving on, city manager, do you have anything you wanna?
Sure, I'll give a couple updates. As council's aware, we've been spending a fair amount of time on budget over the last number of weeks. Some other things that are going on. Shared a article that we were interviewed by the Globe and Mail around our e-bike program. Our story has been published now and really talks about the impact. There was one resident that really spoke to, how the loan program allowed them to, purchase these bikes that they probably wouldn't have been able to before that, so that's positive. The general cost of capital, this was the return that Nelson Hydro or the city receives on Nelson Hydro. That's been filed now with the Utility Commission, the results of their decision. And that will, it goes into our revenue requirement for 2025, so it'll be part of that process. We've been working with our climate team on the organics the extension of the pilot for this year. So there's a bunch of work that's happening there that will include some additional audits and some additional work with residents to see if we can get those usage rates up to where they makes sense.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Do you mean usage rates of the food cycler, or do you mean usage rates of the curbside garbage pickup?
Well, we're gonna do a few different things. So we're gonna, we're gonna focus really on resource recovery as a whole. So we wanna understand, we're gonna start tracking how many people put their garbage and recycling out at the curb weekly, so we have a better sense of that. We're going to look at, not only just when we do the audits, not just the organics in the waste stream, but how much recycling's in the waste stream as well. We're gonna get a better sense of the self-haul that's going out to the transfer station, and really look at what are those barriers that between someone that's using it on a regular basis and someone that appears that probably aren't using it to that same extent. So we're gonna try to understand that and hopefully do all this work in advance of an audit to see if, if we can improve those recovery rates for the organic. So just trying to get some better information. We're kicking around how do we, I think as council knows, the challenge we have from a traditional system is, in a traditional system, you pick it up and you can weigh it and how much you're diverting, whereas in ours, it's kind of what's left. We're trying to determine how much you must have diverted if based on what's not in your waste stream. So we're gonna look at some options around how do we actually weigh what people actually divert, maybe over a month to ask people to to keep track of that. And so we're looking at some different options. There's some technology, these smart plugs can determine how often you use your recycler. So there's a number of things that we're gonna look at, trying to get better data so that council has much better data when they
Yeah, thanks so much. That was a really big report that day, I remember. I have a curiosity because I fit into the category of I would compost or I would food cycler. So there is no change in waste weight that goes out from my house. And I'm curious if there is a way to kind of collect that information, maybe doing an audit of the food cycler users, maybe getting them to self-report. I don't think that was captured fully in that report. Okay. I just interesting aspect of food cycler users are a different kind of person maybe than self-haulers. It's entirely possible that we're trying to capture two different silos. We don't know.
Yeah. So so the goal is to get much better data and have a better understanding of what how they are using the food cycle or not using the food cycle, what's getting in the way of using it. And like I said, not just focus on organics, but also look at what is in that waste stream that, there's alternatives to.
Thanks. Sorry I sidetracked you there.
Oh, no. All right, as far as the Civic Center project, we're getting close to getting out of the Civic Theater part of that building. There's one of the trusses needs to be, we were only able to reinforce it from one side, and then the engineer came back and said, we need to now put basically permanent posts to carry that truss, so that's some additional work that's been done, but it's been, the whole ceiling's been drywalled, they've mudded, we should be painting pretty soon in there, and then sort of patching the walls, so we're hoping to get out of the civic theater side of that, hopefully by the end of this month, but we should be out of there. We're into the dance umbrella, finishing up the dance umbrella part of the project. So in the dance umbrella, we're fuel switching there, we're adding this electric, well, it's a hybrid gas electric furnace in there. We're adding the new windows, and all the insulation has been done in the attic space, so that's really positive, and it actually feel way different. It's the temperature, you can just feel the warmth of what that they use that rock salt out of Grand Forks to insulate that attic. So in the dance umbrella, there's a fair amount of work there still. We have to patch the floor, ceiling, add this new mechanical system, and that's probably gonna be a few months yet just to get equipment, etc. And get the windows. The windows will take about 6 weeks to order.
Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. So I remember year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we had the Ministry of the Environment here showing that building, and we were talking about how when we completed the project, that we'd be cutting 30% of our greenhouse gases from our city-owned buildings by just doing this one building. Is that still the case? Are we on?
No, we're not gonna achieve that, those original estimates. Remember, most of this originally was gonna go into energy upgrades, and
Yes.
we found that the
Yes.
trusses needed to be reinforced, so that was the bigger part. So we set a different target. I don't know, Chris, if you're aware of what we're saving now on this building?
Yeah, so when we got the grant reassigned, we had to go through the calculations. They came back quite a bit lower, but Brendan Riom, our senior energy specialist, actually went through the modeling process as we were looking into what thickness of insulation we were gonna put up there. And we were able to step that up and actually achieve quite a lot higher. I don't know the exact numbers. I can pull it up during this, but it kind of went from like, we're gonna achieve so much, and then obviously down when we realized this became a structural repair, but we were still gonna be able to make some gains, and then right back up to like a much better level than we thought we would achieve. So it's positive, and as well with the windows, and being able to put some dressings on those windows, it'll really significantly support that the dance umbrella as well.
Yes.
To just keep that as much more, not even just from a GHG, but just like a much more enjoyable environment in there, right? So.
Okay. So I mean, but we can include that fix in our GHG reduction calculations.
Yeah, no, for sure. There is still a substantial gain
Yes.
by doing this work, and definitely this fuel switching at the dance umbrella portion of it, and Civic Theatre Society is also looking at heat pumps as well in that theatre space, so there'll be additional savings, and things like we're gonna put blinds on the those south facing windows at the dance umbrella, those huge windows, so we really reduce that heat gain and heat loss there. So there's some smaller things that we're
Thank you.
doing as well.
Thank you.
And just as part of that, we are working closely with the Civic Theatre Society. They're progressing their design, and they're estimating they should be able to get a Class C cost estimate to us at the end of this month. And that's really one of those touch points. They're clear with them, that has to come within their budget. And so we're working with them on that, and they're hoping to pull a building permit sort of mid-March, I believe, and there's a lot of demolition work that they're gonna have to do while they progress their design.
Hopefully not the new drywall.
No, I think Yeah, we've been trying to work with them to, to say, here's things we could do if you get us this information soon enough, but some of that, they just weren't progressing their design fast enough for us.
Sometimes you think I'm not listening.
That's not true.
Not true at all.
Councillor Payne has a question.
Yeah, I'm just interested in the windows, cause I know that was something that came up with the Heritage Working Group, so it's not replacing the windows, it's putting another surface on them, is that?
There's sort of storm windows now, there's an outside and inside window,
that's
so
yeah.
the outside window gets replaced and we've repainted in the inside windows, so there'll be an outside solid unit, sealed unit on the outside. And then
But it maintains the heritage character of those windows.
yeah, it does.
I just wanted to confirm that.
What else was I gonna say? Oh, just in terms of, well, maybe I'll pass it on to Miss Chris and Chris Johnson if there's other updates, but maybe I'll pass it on to you to, we did participate in a workshop put on by one of the lawyers around the, the tariffs being threatened today, and Chris and his team have been looking at, how do we manage through this kind of uncertain times.
Yeah, so we have had some conversations internally, myself and Suzanne Rorick, our purchasing and warehouse manager, on sort of where are we at and what are some things we can do over the next month to reduce some risks that we might be facing on higher than expected purchase of inventory and materials, and primarily impacting those capital projects. But first, I guess, just to put things in perspective, like we carry a lot more inventory than we used to. So pre-COVID, we'd had about 1.3 million worth of inventory. Since then, we've really worked to sort of balance. I mean, you don't want to have too much inventory that you're carrying stuff that's obsolete, but I think all the supply chain shortages that we went through during that time sort of got us to rethink how we carry inventory. So we carry about double that now. So we got about 2.6 million in inventory. Some of that is just, we're talking dollars, so it's just stuff's more expensive. But we do have more quantities as well. So, on the water and sewer pipe, we have enough to do all our 2025 projects. We don't have, we carry enough inventory. So we're really looking ahead now to 2026 to see if we should also be acquiring some of those water and sewer pipes. So that's something we'll kind of work on, but we're fixed for 2025. So that's one area of focus. The other's on our vehicles and equipment. So we've got one large hydro replacement line truck that's coming quite shortly. So that one's already done and paid for. We've got another couple large purchases. One I think is a Ford Lightning and another one's a hydro flatbed truck. Those ones will get the RFQ out, the quotes out for those this week, and then hopefully have those close in the month of February. So we'll have those ones locked in. Those kind of make up the bulk of what we had for equipment purchases. There's one more that was likely not going to show up here till 2026. So that one's a bit of a risk. We'll have to look at that one. That's another hydro vehicle. It was very hydro heavy this year. So we'll have to take a look at that one. But then it's looking further down the road. It's, what do we have for fire in future years? Got a ladder truck that we always talk about that's, probably more like a 2029 purchase or 2030. But, that's something to kind of consider. There's also risks with going to rush out and purchase things now because the Canadian dollar is not fantastic. So, there's a couple of different things playing against us at this point.
Councillor Woodward?
Thank you. Something that is, quite prevalent in the news is that the idea of sourcing, of course, not from American sources and looking for other sources for supplies. Is that part of this calculation?
Yeah, so most of our suppliers are Canadian, where they get their product from though, maybe the US. And so to that point though, we'll buy a lot of equipment and then we'll customize that. We'll add a flatbed to it. We'll put a snowplow on the front of it. That's all done here in Canada. So it's just sort of that initial vehicle purchase. And the average vehicle bounces back and forth. You've probably heard this statistic between 6 and 8 times, before it lands in your driveway. So it's kind of hard to source those individual parts and say like, are they Canadian or are they US? But all of that sort of aftermarket, we do a lot of it ourselves, but any of the other stuff we get them to, like I say, put a flatbed or a snowplow on the front of it, we'll do that here.
Thank you.
One place I would think we wanna look to, when we went into COVID at economic development, we had a 30-point response in terms of how we're gonna deal with that. We've got a 30-day window to think about how this might look. And a few things have occurred to me in terms of, I would say we open up a little bit of space in our budget for the NAADP and Kootenay Lake tourism if necessary. Specifically at the NAADP, potentially doing, a shop local, buy local, kind of rehash of all that invest in your local community work that we did during those really quiet months and local months of COVID. I think that can just be picked up and repurposed. And I think from the tourism side, obviously there's consternation about our sovereignty and the 51st Strait, and that's all very concerning, but when we're concerned about how people are responding here in Nelson, which also was a bit different than other places, how we invite our American neighbors to come from the blue states that aren't being targeted, to come to Nelson and spend their American dollars here, while our dollar is weaker because decreasing our spending power of our Canadian dollars is one of those ways federal levels buttress against tariffs. That's what China does. So I think if we have a good, strong message that this is a great year to come visit Nelson and help support local Canadian economies and places that you love, I think we should be capable of putting that message out, and I think we should be capable of making sure people are shopping local too and picking up what we did at economic development the first time around. Because we're going into some sort of recessionary headwind regardless. It's just a matter of how much the 51st president is going to shake the boat, or the 47th president is going to shake the boat down there, and it's obviously going to be as much as he can.
So just to follow up, Councillor Page, so I have been in conversation with Tom Thompson, and it is the chamber that, is a strong proponent of the shop local program. And so we were in conversation about how to sort of bring that back and ramp it up again. And just in terms of Nelson Kootenay Lake tourism, I haven't had a chance to reach out to Mr. Moynes yet, but he's on my list. But just know that historically, Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism has done a vast share of their advertising in Washington and Idaho. It's been mainly a southern advertising campaign for Kootenay Lake tourism over the years. So they've already had a fair amount of exposure. I mean, it would be good to check in and see if that exposure has over time shifted and whether or not they were trying to get more of an Alberta market or whatever, but a significant amount of their aim in terms of marketing has been to the United States.
And I don't think they need advice from us on marketing necessarily, but if I was gonna put in my 2 cents, I'd really highlight the fact that you can have any gender you want here.
Good point.
Yeah, so speaking about budgets, and Councillor Page, you mentioned, we are going through the budget process right now. We can talk about this more on Friday, but our internal thoughts as staff are sort of revisiting our capital program and looking to sort of prioritize certain projects, say what are the things that, there's a legislative requirement that we need to do it. What are some of those projects that, we're talking about maintaining our current assets, and by, delaying some of those things, we actually end up spending more. So those would be higher priority. And then what are some of those projects that are more an expansion of our capital? We're kind of adding assets to our base, and maybe those are the ones that we, can sharpen the pencil a little bit or sort of look at and say, is this a crucial 2025 or is this something that could be, done in a subsequent year? So we'll kind of revisit that and maybe be able to bring back something to you that would, look slightly different. I think most of what's in there is fundamentally things that we need to do. There's not a lot of wiggle room. We've already kind of gone through that process, but I think we could probably worth taking a second look at it. Or probably a 10th look at it. We've been through it quite a few times, but in light of recent events, it's worth revisiting.
I think we,
Sort of the last little piece, because we talked about water, sewer and hydro vehicles. Probably the last little piece is IT. A lot of that is, software maintenance and that type of thing, which, my understanding is that would be no tariffs on those types of, maintenance agreements. So it's more the hardware components. So if you broke that into two sections and talked about, servers and PCs, the PC replacement piece, we're gonna take a look at that and see, are there some that we could stretch out for another year? Again, all of our suppliers are here in Canada, but where they get those PCs from, are they direct from China? Do they come in through the States? That's sort of the unknown, so we'll sort of find out a little bit more on that. But if we can delay or find different, hardware sources that aren't US based, we'll take a look at that. The other pieces though on the servers, we really only replace our servers once they reach end of life where they're no longer supported and then we're no longer receiving those security updates. So there's a risk to extending those any longer. Now we're getting into, a cybersecurity risk. So there's a few that we'll reach out to and try and get an extension on those replacements and get another year of security updates. But the ones that we can't, then I think it's important that we replace those as scheduled.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you. So, as Councillor Page was saying, it definitely feels like we're heading into a pretty chaotic situation, what's happening down south. And I've noticed the Premier of BC is taking a pretty hard line and saying, you know what, we're gonna pull our risk factors as much as we can from US suppliers. He was, he's furious as what's happened here. And I'm just wondering do we try to protect ourselves through our whatever we need as a city and move away as much as we can from American suppliers? Because I don't think, as Councillor Page said, I don't think this is gonna stop. It's just there's gonna be just one lurching kind of critical crisis thing after another. So just trying to buffer ourselves as much as possible from that chaos.
Well, we do go out for quotes, like formal process and, a tender, and we'll take the lowest price. So, if we go out to, for example, transformers for hydro, we have a couple of Canadian suppliers, but they, again, will go out and get components from either the US or China. So when we put out a quote or tender to those firms and they bid on those, presumably one will bake in a 25% tariff, the other one, if they're sourcing components from China, won't need to. So that will factor into those prices. But again, a lot of our suppliers are Canadian, but it's where they are getting their components that there's less control over, but price is always a factor in our decision making.
And I think the other thing that we do, we're part of that buying group, and they have the expertise to probably do a lot of that work, so we don't have to do all that ourselves.
Okay, great.
And the province also has, they have standing contracts with various entities as well, so they go do that work as well. So I think we really need to lean on those type of groups that are the experts in purchasing.
I think the Premier was saying, the piece I read is that anything we can do to not have riding on the whim of this person in office in the States, that need to move away from that, because it's so chaotic, you'll never know what he's gonna do next. And it's just not good for sustainable long-term planning.
No, and how does a supplier provide you a price, they're gonna clearly have to put that on the purchaser, that risk on the purchaser. If there's additional tariffs that are added, you will, get assured the pricing you receive it's X, and you take the risk if there's tariffs added to it, so that creates uncertainty for everyone, right?
Right. Okay, thank you.
I think we need to keep in mind that, in Canada, we do have integrated supply chain. So as Mr. Jury was saying there, is that we go to the Canadian supplier, but we don't really know where they get those things. And I think that we need to, in the midst of all of this, keep that in mind. And that's the idea of, trying to say shop local or try to buy Canadian. But in terms of shopping local, a good example, so I have joined this group called the Border Mayors Alliance, which is a group of mayors across Canada that are in border communities. And we have a number, so we've met a few times and are discussing about what we could do locally. But an example that really resonates with me, and you heard me say this actually yesterday, was talking about Paul Cowan, who we know owns Cowan's. And he said his art supplies come from the United States. He's got nowhere else to source those from. Those are where he gets them from. They come from the US. But I mean, in terms of shopping local, the idea is to support Paul Cowan and Cowan's office supply by shopping locally, not doubling down and then ordering from Amazon, which we know is an American company, to buy those things because maybe you can save a buck. I mean, so shop local doesn't mean that you just go out and never buy anything that doesn't have a Canadian label on it. I mean, people need to replace equipment. You can't buy a Canadian fridge or a Canadian dishwasher, or we don't manufacture those things in Canada. But you can go to Bears, or you can go to Castleguard, to the furniture store there, and buy there, so that we preserve employment and job opportunities within our own region. That's what shopping local is also about. So, and the other thing we have to keep in mind for some of our larger projects, and I think Mr. Jury can talk about this more, or Kevin, and that is, we do have these trade agreements, and it was a very good question asked today by one of the people on the call, in terms of where we are limited in procurement by international trade, mainly NAFTA or USUMA or whatever they call it these days, where at a certain level, we have to go out to an open bid, and so we can't restrict what companies bid on it. And the question was asked is, was there any feeling that governments might look at breaking those agreements if push comes to shove? Because we are limited in how we can do some procurement based on international trade rules and our already trade agreements that we have with the US and Mexico. So, there's little things we can do close to home. The big projects have a little more difficulty within them, but I thought it was an excellent question, because we are tied on major procurement to the rules, and the rules do predicate a certain spot where you can go to buy. So
Yeah, it was interesting that, that is one thing that was addressed by the lawyers on the call we were at, that, they definitely believe that, that these tariffs have broken the, those trade agreements. But it takes 2 years to go through that process, and I think the recourse is you can have retaliatory tariffs. So really, yes, they've broken it. The recourse is not that they have to drop tariffs, it's that you can have retaliatory tariffs. And in those agreements, it did contemplate national emergencies or something that wasn't out for it. So yes, it's quite complex in terms
that's
of
really complex.
of sort of the stance, and we'll be obviously looking to direction from the province and feds and others on what the best course of action to do and so there's definitely changing times.
Yeah, thankfully, we're not replacing the Lions Gate Bridge or anything in Nelson anytime soon, but it's, thankfully we don't have those huge procurement things. I think the other thing is that we can only hope for is that perhaps some of our friends on the other side of the border challenge Mr. Trump's use of Emergency Measures Act to actually invoke the tariffs as a punitive system for drug trafficking and immigration. So it's kind of like he's invoked the power to then circumvent having to go to Congress to actually ask for tariffs to be put in place. So it's a bit not above board, I would say, but hopefully that those in Congress or those others that might challenge him in his own country about using such important act that shouldn't be used willy-nilly to bring in tariffs. Councillor Page.
Okay, I love the discussion. I agree. I still would reiterate that I think even at this junction, we need to start thinking of having a little bit of cash, probably about 5,000 or 10,000 in the budget that can be asked for from some of the other organizations. I still think, very much as Nelson is proudly Canadian and American friendly, overarching message, because as much as tariffs are going to impact what we are selling to America, it's going to be a different story for Cowans unless there's retaliatory on those segments. But really, it's the message that our small businesses are strong, that we're highlighting through our farmers market the different kinds of manufacturing that goes on in this area, that we're getting a clear sense that you can help secure your food security by plugging into the CSA boxes. It's having those posters that are all the same, kind of post-disaster, that say we're open for business, that this is a local run business, and that you're helping and supporting. And when that whole message comes together across Kootenay Lake tourism, across economic development, across the chamber, then I think Nelson specifically and the Cooties in general can punch beyond whatever else is going on there. And that's what I want to make sure we go into the summer resourcing, as opposed to being here in March or April kind of saying, oh, we should really fire up a program. We've done it before, and I just think we want to put a little bit of cash aside to consider letting them plug into that, so there's one unified chorus of come to Nelson, buy our stuff. Sorry for the speech.
There's nothing wrong with that suggestion, and and we can talk about it again on Friday, and whether or not it needs a line, or the fact that we usually always have, when push comes to shove, as Councillor Page, there's always usually some money available that we can find someplace to help organizations within our community going forward. So.
Okay, great.
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thanks. Feel like that was very interesting conversation to try and follow up, but I can provide a few little pieces. So last update that I provided, we had gone, we're in the midst of a drought, and our crews were out and about, sort of taking care of a lot of, it was a good time. It was a lot of jobs that often don't get the attention, or we don't necessarily have the time to address. So that was a really good opportunity to get after that. But so this time I really wanted to highlight some of the successes that we saw with this most recent snowstorm. And I think, probably the most interesting one for us was the treatment that we've been putting on the roads with the brine and the beet juice. So just as like a, sort of a quick way to look at it, if you've been out on some of the highways, and in particular if you went out to, towards Salmo or up to Whitewater, the highway there where it was all sort of really deep and rutted and rough driving on the highway, that is, an example where this brine or beet juice hasn't been laid down, and that snow, the compact, is really bonded to the pavement, and you just can't really get it off. It's there until it eventually gets worn down, and the salts kind of work at it, and then you can chisel it off. And hopefully what you've seen around our town, with the exception of some areas of the highway that goes through town, which we don't look after, is that it's been really smooth, right? And I think that this has been sort of the perfect example of using that brine in advance, and then even before the snow came, we switched over to the beet juice, which really does break up that bond between the snow and the pavement. And it's resulted in, what is really good driving conditions. I think back to all the times that I've driven down Baker Street after a snowstorm where it stayed cold and the snow is stuck around, and it's, you're kind of like, it's like you're on a dirt road, right? But, everything's nice and clear, and so, it's a really, really big kudos to the crews that are developing this process internally. And in fact, one of the old sort of senior folks that had retired from us a number of years ago even sent in a letter to our crews just saying, hey, never seen the roads look so good after a big snow event like that, like really good job. So I just think it's a nice opportunity to acknowledge the work that they're doing on the road side of things. So I've been working at that. They'll continue to work at it. Again, we're going into these really cool temperatures, so switching over to the beet juice, the brine becomes more of a problem when you use it at about road temperatures of like -8, -7, -8. So we'll be hitting pretty low road temperatures with cooler weather at night. So the beet juice will be going out. But other than that, so our crews are still going to be moving, loading out snow. We've really prioritized the downtown core, loading out the school zones, loading out to make sure that we have enough room for vehicles to park, and it's not a real challenge to get over the banks. And so you'll see a lot of that. Things are looking quite nice and clean, and they'll continue to work at that for the coming week. And there's a little bit of snow on the forecast. Seems like the forecasts are maybe a little bit up in the air on that, but some of the ones that we've seen is snow again start midweek next week. So there's that side of things. Sorry.
Councillor Pagan has a question.
I'm just trying to understand if there's any way to use some of those technologies that you're talking about, the brine and the beet juice, on the sidewalks, which is my major method of transportation, because they're not only rutted, they're now iced with then snow over them, making them really dangerous, even the ones, and I'm not talking about all the sidewalks obviously, but the key ones that the city is maintaining, some of them are in the same sort of condition. So I'm just throwing it out there, not asking for miracles this year, but as we move forward, many of our goals are to increase the number of trips by foot and reduce the number, the street. Yes, not trips. But yeah, the street in front of my house, you're right, it's clear.
Yeah.
It's clear. That's the safest spot to walk. And sometimes I'm tempted just to walk down the street. If it weren't for the large vehicles, I would do that more often because the sidewalks are dicey.
Mm-hmm.
So just.
Yep, absolutely. I'll pass that on. And I think that this cycle, last year was the first real year that we got into it, and then, this is the first big cycle this year. So I think as we continue to understand the tool that it is and see where we can possibly apply it on sidewalks. But I'll pass that on to operations and see what they can do there.
Yeah, because even I was out shoveling twice the sidewalk on the day that we got the big snow. And even that, it's not enough to keep it clear and just a thought.
A couple other just sort of larger things that you'll notice happening. The storm pipe down at the entrance to the Lakeside playing fields, crews will be moving back to that this week. Sort of a skeleton crew. The rest again are out still moving snow around. But basically with that, as I mentioned before, there was going to be a time we were going to take a breath, figure out what exactly we were going to do. The plan now is to sort of figure out a temporary solution for that pipe, get it covered up for this season, and then go through the appropriate planning process and get that out to market to have companies bid on actually installing that pipe. What it is the corrugated metal pipe. It's of an age where seeing it. Terrible as always. Face for radio. Anyways, so they are going to be working on patching that up to make sure that we have access. Now is not a great time to be, filling and packing holes. So we know that will come with some challenges, come spring, summer, where there'll be regular maintenance on that patch that goes through there. But this is, instead of sort of chasing that emergency fix where all of a sudden, you're investing lots of energy and time, and it's a bit, you don't have that planning to go along with it. We're getting, did this assessment, figured out that, yeah, we probably need a little bit more planning and engineering, and so we can patch it up while that gets done, and then we'll go to market with the job. So that'll be, like I said, you'll be seeing some work happening down there. And then finally, just on a note, when we brought in Kootenay Lake West, the transit, we moved to a garage space that was south of town because we didn't have space down below. It was, anticipated that we maybe could make some space for all of the buses and the garage space required for down there. And we've now been able to, through reorganizing our existing yard that we have, taking over some area that was sort of underutilized before. We're now planning to be moving KLW fully down to the Public Works yard. So really good news, really great work by the crews again to get all of that organized, and it'll be great to have all of our assets, both transit assets, but then as well have all of our mechanics there that can work on everything together, and as opposed to having one mechanic up there and sort of having to do different jobs back and forth and running around. So another real good news story there on that. That's what all I got. Thank you.
Okay. Counselors,
I have a
any
question
report?
before we go
Oh,
on, if that's
sure.
okay. I'm just interested where we're at on the request from Selkirk Innovates for stage 2 of the Addressing Rural Homelessness, the Stories to Solutions, because I know they're looking at a response shortly.
Yeah, I meant to address that. I did attend the workshop that they had. I did reach out to Selkirk to provide a more specific outline of that, of what benefit to local government they would be working towards, so I do have that now. I think as far as budget, again, I think this is one of the ones that we don't necessarily have to have a specific line item. I think we would, it's a one-time fund, they don't need the money right now, it's for 3 years. So it's a request of $7,500. That's for the 3-year period, and they don't need that that money up front. It's dependent on whether they get the grant that they're applying for. So
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
I attended a couple of those. It was good work. I like any kind of destigmatizing type work. I think that's really useful and helpful in this time. I'm curious if with partnering with a local government, it could be that the intention of the research is different than what we might want to leverage it for. So I'm curious if there's any way to pose questions that could be investigated that could be more or additionally helpful to us.
Yeah, so I think they're trying to, the money we put in, I think helps them get MyTax money for students. And they did indicate that, that they could be more specific to sort of the needs of local government. So I think there is that opportunity. Certainly my feedback was, it's this gathering stories approach. So I said, they've committed that will be broad, community-wide broad, not just those experiencing homeless, not just those serving the homeless, but also the business community, just the community as a whole, and looking at where the successes and challenges are. So if, for example, we have this temporary housing, so it would, if that is working and so to gather that information so that a cask or a trail goes, okay, we see this as a positive solution for this, or the senior levels of government, this is working, this is providing support. There's some gaps certainly identified by the providers now of gaps in the system that aren't working. So again, if we can identify those things that that council can lobby those senior levels of government, like this piece is not working, for example. There was, the intake for detox beds is Tuesday morning or something, so if you're not hit rock bottom on Tuesday morning, then, and you hit rock bottom on Saturday and you can't get a bed, you can't even get an intake until Tuesday, then you missed your window. So I think those type of things will
Yeah, and
influence.
I'm just gonna riff off that because there's a benefit to them, to the researchers being non-governmental in their way. Full disclosure, I work at the college, in that they kind of can bridge the different levels of government and the different ministries, because I think when we're looking at homelessness, everyone agrees, and it's very common knowledge that it is a complex issue and each person needs to be approached individually because they have really complex individual needs. However, those complex individual needs, often the addressing of those needs is siloed into different departments like housing or mental health or, wound care or whatever it is, depending on the person. And that ability as an outsider to find where those bridges are missing and those communication pathways, I think could be really helpful to us and the other agencies, departments, ministries, etc. I mean, it's almost too hard to help a person or for a person to help themselves because of these different aspects of the help being in down different hallways and on different forms and so on. So it'd be really interesting to be able to identify some of those pieces where the communication is gapping as well. I'm just riffing off your idea. That was your idea.
And I think what I remember from the sessions that I was in is when you commit to being a partner in this, you have somebody at the table that's determining these things. So it's a process of coming together as a group and moving the project forward in a way that serves your specific community, region, whatever it is. So I think that's how we would focus on the particular items that would be greatest benefit to our community.
So,
And they also did say that, they would, if we're a sponsor, that what that MyTech student does can be, formulated to fit our particular needs, For example, we have this, like I said, this temporary supportive housing. So how does that fit? Is that working? What's the gaps around that or whatever? So it does sound like there's some customization as well.
Okay, yeah. What you said is what I was thinking.
okay. So, yeah, it's $7,500. Once I had asked for clarification from that by Jamie Jones a number of months ago when it first came out. I thought it was $7,500 yearly. It's $7,500 for the next round.
Providing they get.
And we don't, and provided they get the money from sources that they're going to. And in my conversation with her, I didn't commit the city of Nelson, but I didn't think that $7,500 was gonna break the bank either, so. Council reports. Councilor Payne.
I just wanna mention that the OCP committee met yesterday and had a really fulsome discussion. Those of us were there, but the key thing that came out of that I wanna communicate is that we are now in the next part of the community engagement. So this Thursday on February 6th, there'll be a session at Wildflower School from 5 till 8. And then the following week on February 11th, there'll be another open house session with looking at the OCP and taking input from people up at Rosemont School, again from 5 until 8. So there'll be staff, committee members, I don't know who else will be there, but lots of information, people to answer your questions. And really at this point in time, it is critical to get your input. If there is something you wanna understand about what this plan is gonna look like, now is the time. We have the draft plan, so come out and tell us what you think about it, what's great, what could be improved, and did we miss something critical? So I think that's really important. I also want to mention that Heritage Week is the third week of the month, always near and dear to my heart, living in the town that we do. And the Nelson Museum and Art Gallery is going to be hosting Greg Nestroff at 1 o'clock on the 23rd, talking about heritage buildings that we've lost. And he has an excellent collection of photos of those buildings, a lot of them from just him being out looking at them. And I think he's also gonna talk about buildings that we may be in danger of losing and how critical that is. This isn't one he mentioned specifically, but at the housing committee one day, we were talking about how would we create more space at Cicada Place? And I said, well, what about the building behind you? And then I discovered that that is a heritage building. You know, the white building on Front Street across from Ellison's doesn't necessarily look like it. It looks like an old building, not a heritage building, but there is significant heritage value in that building for the Chinese community that came here as immigrants to Nelson. So I think it'll be really interesting from a council perspective just to be there and see the wealth that we have in heritage and how important it is for us to be aware of how that needs to be protected. And leading back to the OCP, creating that Baker Street Heritage Zone or enhancing and protecting it is a big part of that. I'm just gonna do two community shout outs. The West Kootenay Watershed, can't remember if they're an association or they're not-for-profit. They packed the Capitol on January 26th. Suzanne Samard spoke with a student doing his PhD who actually born and raised in Nelson, and they talked about you know, how critical the health of the forest is to our watersheds. So it was a full, engaged, and just really interesting crowd. If you haven't heard Dr. Samard speak before, very approachable, very easy to get the message of some of the big work that we need to do in our own area. And the last one is just the winter emergency beds at St. Saviour's. Compared to previous years, with the support of many players in the community, including our own emergency services, is working exceptionally well this year. So between the North Shore Inn, the extra beds that open up at Stepping Stones and St. Saviour's, we are very well positioned to take care of those individuals who would generally be just trying to walk around all night so they don't stop and freeze to death. So it just is sort of heartwarming to me that everyone has come together around this, and I really wanted to thank the volunteers, the staff, and everyone else who's been part of the management and organization. That's it for me.
Councilors, any? Councilor Page.
I'll take the opportunity just because I know people will be curious that we have a timeline for our public engagement pieces that we're going down in rec. We'll get more information about this tomorrow at our rec 5 meeting, but we should have results out to the community by February 28th and first weeks of March is when we'll get feedback before a final report is generated. So got all our respondents, nearly 2,000 organizations and residents responded to the recreational campus survey, and that's all being compiled now. Should be a report that's going to the working group by the middle of February. And
2,000 households.
a lot.
It's amazing. It's awesome.
Amazing. So we got a really good response, and we'll be able to see what everybody says by the end of February.
Councilor Tate.
Thanks so much. I've been attending the ENCO meetings. Lovely to see all the people in one place. And I'm also with Councilor Payne sitting on the report card on homelessness. So are participating in that project this year. Things are going well. Very excited about rec. Lots going on with rec right now, and lots of community engagement in those pieces. Thanks everybody for that engagement.
Anybody else? So, Councillor Payne, thank you for the shout out regarding the OCP. You didn't throw in, just surprised, the website, so you can go to
Do something for you.
Let's talk dot, yeah, thanks. Let's talk dot nelson.ca, where you can get on, because there's also, besides going to the two open houses that Councillor Payne mentioned, there is a survey available on the city website. So once again, let's talk dot nelson.ca. And trying to keep my days filled, I guess, and interesting things that are going on. I did have a meeting last week with Mayor Jones of Trail and Mayor McFadden of Castlegar, where we talked about regionally about how we're doing with housing and looking at, we discussed shelters, the supportive housing, affordable housing. We talked about detox, rehab, and complex care beds. So we had a good conversation. We touched, of course, briefly on what the impacts might be of all of the north-south discussions going on with Mr. Trump. Of course, very interesting with Mayor Jones in the Trail being there and having Tech Vinco there that does such an enormous amount of cross-trade business. So interesting what's going on there. I attended the swearing in of our new inspector, Jason Jukes, who has come to us from Oak Bay. His interesting factoid is that he was originally an RCMP officer. That was his training. And his first assignment after leaving the depot was he was actually an RCMP officer here in Nelson. So 20 years later, he has now come full circle and is back in Nelson. So
We say take that, Oak Bay.
and he managed to find a house here within the city boundaries. So it was great to be able to welcome him. He has a wife and two daughters who are attending, one's at LVR and one's at Trafalgar. So let me see here, what else have I got here? I did sit in on quite a few hours of the Save Our Streets, which is coalition of BC interested groups. Those of you who are familiar with our group here called End to End Neighbors, Nelson Neighbors, what is it? Neighborhood Network. That was started by Tanya Finley. She's on their oversight committee of this group provincially, and they had a full day meeting in Vancouver at the end of January. So I tried to listen in. I was able to pick it up virtually. I was in transit that day coming back from Vancouver. So they had some interesting things to be said, and my understanding is that Ms. Finley will be organizing a community meeting at some point, which I'm sure for those of you that are on social media will see the advertisement to discuss the findings of that day-long meeting for those that might want to go to that. And I've also been in contact with, talking with Wayne Price, who's the mayor of Cranbrook, regarding, and we're gonna be talking about AQBLG, so this will be some, like it'll come when we talk about the AQBLG resolutions. But you may or may not have heard that Cranbrook is getting a significant $30 or $40 million upgrade to their hospital for oncology services, and they were hoping to have radiation therapy. The government told them that they didn't have the numbers. It's what you tell people that live in rural province, part of the province, is that you don't have the numbers. So they won't even build them the bunker for the chance that radiation therapy could come in another few years. And so again, now people that live in that southeast corner of the province still have to travel to Kelowna to have radiation therapy. And so I discussed with him the potential of if we could find work together to have something go to AQBLG as a resolution again about the requirement for health transportation, and that we need to improve we need to improve all the transportation, but, in terms of healthcare, we really need to improve that linkage because our residents here also have to go to Kelowna for radiation therapy. And they had used both the West Kootenay supposedly numbers and the East Kootenay numbers, because it would have been probably, for many, might have been easier for us from here to go to Cranbrook, say, than to Kelowna, but.
I have an idea, just riffing off that. So
You're riffing a lot today,
Have
girl.
those other communities, I know we were ahead on doing the housing needs report, but since we're provincially mandated to do a housing needs report, which predicts how many people you're gonna have according to these provincial calculations, should we not also impose that same calculation on our medical services and health services? And I'm curious if the other communities you're making a face, is that right? Am I right? Thank you. And have the other communities completed theirs? I'm not sure, but if they haven't, are they close? Do we have some draft numbers? And attach that to the resolution as well, please.
Okay, doubling down. So, anyways, good ideas. Anyway, so those are some of the things that I've been doing in the last couple of weeks in terms of reaching out to talk to some other mayors and yeah. So it's been kind of interesting, particularly the Board of Mayors Alliance. Getting in contact with all these, and I'm hoping that a few of us will be attending FCM this year, myself, Councillor Tate and Councillor Woodward. And hopefully, I'm hopeful that those of us who participate in the Alliance will have an opportunity to be able to meet in person when we're at FCM.
Further to, I'm gonna interrupt again, further to mayor alliances, I noticed an article in a local paper in Chilliwack where the mayor had noted that they felt an unbalanced pressure for the lower end of the housing spectrum in their community compared to the neighboring communities. And I know that that's a comment that we've heard here in Nelson quite a bit. So, and maybe those folks you guys have seen in the paper Ken Sim saying the same thing for the city of Vancouver, that there's an unfair, I don't want to say burden, let's just say distribution of different types of housing on different communities. I'd be really interested if Nelson, Chilliwack, City of Vancouver could also become an alliance, what's the word for that? Align, that's a different word. And get on that bus, because I think if again, the housing needs report that is provincially mandated is for the spectrum of housing, and Nelson is awesome and is doing all the spectrum of housing, but some communities are only doing part of the spectrum of housing. And also I think there should be some kind of cookie for doing that. But Chilliwack, Nelson, Vancouver, I think are in similar boats in that way, and it'd be really interesting if in your spare time you could get a hold of Ken Sim.
I did make a call to Ken Sims because Ken Sims was a presenter at the Save Our Streets.
Oh, okay.
And the next morning when I got up after listening to that all day, I did send his office, I think, because I missed a little bit of his talk, because of course I was in transit, so they sent me a video recording so I could listen to it again. And I now have been added to their list of Lower Mainland mayors, because the Lower Mainland mayors do meet periodically to speak about that aspect of the housing continuum. And so I will be invited to the next one of those meetings. So I've got my name on the list or in the list.
Yeah.
But just, we did discuss particularly the Chilliwack article. That was a topic of conversation when I met with Mayor Jones and Mayor McFadden when we had the Tri-Cities mayor get together. And about the importance of making sure that we're all doing this together. And they are well aware that they are far behind Nelson, but are hoping to be able to pick up the pace, so to speak. And are willing to support AQBLG, some resolutions talking about the regional, which we'll talk about more when we get to resolutions.
Thank you.
Okay, 5:56. Okay, we're gonna ask for, I was gonna see if I could fit in the in-camera,
You can
but
see it, you can see what time it is.
oh, I can't, I can see it up there and it's backwards to me, but what is now burnt into the back of my neck at 5:56?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I could have a resolution to adjourn for dinner. Moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor? Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll be back at 7 o'clock.
Fill the space.
Well, that's good. We got
We're good, we're live, yep.
We are live.
Development, so.
We're live.
Um,
So does this mean we don't need the microphones anymore?
yeah, they're in the ceiling or
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got that, I didn't
Here's
know.
what
Oh, these are.
we don't have to, we won't look up and talk to the ceiling gods, but
Heaven forbid.
Okay, we're good.
okay, welcome back, everybody. If I could have a motion to reconvene the meeting, moved by Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Woodward. All those in favor? And that carries. Okay, moving on with things. We are at item number 10, and we have a number of bylaws here that require some reading. Or final reading, if I get to the right page here. Okay. So the current APC bylaw number 3244/2012 and Board of Variance bylaw number 3251/2012 have not been amended since adoption in 2012. Since then, legislative changes and current needs require updates to both bylaws. Development Services proposes repealing both of these bylaws and adopting new bylaws that meet current standards. Council has passed first 3 readings of these bylaws and is now being asked to adopt the bylaw.
I'll move for one.
Okay. And is there a seconder for, okay, seconded by Councillor Tate. That's been moved and seconded. Any discussion regarding the APC?
Should I read it, Mayor?
Sure, please.
At the Corporation of the City of Nelson Advisory Planning Commission bylaw number 3621/2025 be finally adopted.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And that carries. And is there a recommendation for recommendation number 2? Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Woodward. Councillor Tate.
That the Corporation of the City of Nelson Board of Variance bylaw number 3622/2025 be finally adopted.
Okay, any questions or concerns regarding the Board of Variance bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Okay, moving on. Fees and charges amendments. Due to the time. Oh, he's leaving. Nice. Oh, he was here in case you had a question about that.
That's what he was here for.
Oh, okay, I was like, wow, thank you very much, Ken. Due to the timing of the increase of parking meters in early 2024, the seniors' parking permits were postponed as some 2024 passes had already been purchased by residents. Council has passed the first 3 readings of the fees and charges amendment, traffic and parking meter fees bylaw number 3624/2025, and is now being asked to adopt the bylaw. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Tate. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lockenberg. Any discussion on final reading? Okay. Councillor Payne.
We did raise a number of points the last time. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things that I looked into after we had the first 3 readings of this in one meeting. I think we got an excellent email from Karen Andrews. And one of the things that I want to bring out is, while age alone does not determine need, seniors face unique financial challenges, including rising healthcare costs and limited capacity to absorb new expenses. Many seniors living on pensions are a fixed income that does go up according to the cost of living. So equitable policies should consider these realities. And I did look up the average monthly income of a senior living in our community, and it's $2,800 a month. So when you're living on average, with $2,800 a month. And there are significant increases, and we know taxes may be another one as we move forward. I think anything that increases at the amount that we are suggesting for the parking pass, all of those incremental things, we all just got our water, wastewater, and sewer bill, significant increase there. You add all those incremental amounts up, and it does make a significant difference to the average, which is the majority, not the majority, the average senior living in our community. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I thought it was an excellent explanation of the points that made sense for the parking pass for seniors to not be increased at the same rate as the general parking rate increase.
Thank you. Any further councillors? Councillor Pinero?
Yeah, just to sort of echo those points, I think those are good points, and to also clarify something, so our options and alternatives here are adapt the bylaw or do not adapt the bylaw. The bylaw, as stated, is with this,
Correct.
right? So if we're not really debating the rate increase anymore, we're debating the existence of a seniors pass, is that true?
At this point, you're at the fees and charges amendment, so that's the change, be adopted.
So
So we are, it is the
still
price.
the fee, not the actual pass itself? Okay. Yeah, I would just, I'm just gonna say what I said last time, basically, is that, you know, there's a lot of things that are going up these days that need to, and we don't have any control over them, and I think that we do have control over this. It's a segment of the population that, not all of them need this help. I think the people that use the service, by and large, do need the help, and I think it's it may very well be a gesture. It's a gesture that's appreciated by many people, and my feeling is that we should be making that gesture. So again, it's been debated before. I don't expect it to be different now, but just to reiterate the point.
Any further councillors? Seeing none, so we've moved who moved this?
Okay, I moved it.
So did you read it out?
I did not.
Sorry.
That the Corporation of the City of Nelson Fees and Charges Amendment, Traffic and Parking Meter Fees Bylaw number 3624/2025 be finally adopted.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And those opposed? Those opposed wishing to be recorded?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so Councillor Pinero and Councillor Payne to be recorded, and that motion carries. Moving on to fees and charges amendment for the farmers market fees. Staff recommend an increase to vendor fees with the goal to increase revenue and improve operations of the Nelson Farmers Market. Amending the fees and charges bylaw to implement an increase in current vendor fees is presented here for council to consider. So there we go. So we're just doing initial readings. There's quite a package of background here for everybody to look at. Is there a mover? And then we'll have debate. Councillor Woodward, moving number 1. Is there a seconder? Councillor Page, Councillor Woodward.
That the fees and charges amendment, farmers market fees, bylaw number 3630/2025 be introduced and read a first and second time by title only.
Okay. Councillors, any questions or concerns? Councillor Payne.
I'm assuming that the budget information that we were presented includes the new rates?
Does.
So the farmer's market budget?
The intent of the farmer's market is to operate on a break even.
Yeah.
So their current expenditure budget reflects this increase in revenue. If they were not to get that increase in revenue, they would have to work with a reduced operating budget.
So then the increase in fees is worth about $30,000 according to the.
Yeah, correct.
Councillor Payne.
So is it generally, in my experience, I've seen many of the staff that work at the market also from the youth center? Do they have sort of a crossover, or are they different jobs, do you know?
I did, sorry, can you repeat, sorry?
When I'm down at the market, I've seen some individuals who I know work at the youth center, so is it something that they can do both of, or do they apply separately to do those, or?
They can do both of, they're trained to do both, to fill both of those roles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this a living wage position then? Are they paid a living wage at this position?
The coordinator is the market coordinator, but the kids who help out or the sort of employees that are there to support the coordinator are not paid. They're paid minimum wage, I believe. It's all based on the collective agreement.
On the what, sorry?
Collective agreement. So they are part of, those employees are part of the union, the QP union.
Sorry?
I'd like a union that would get me more than minimum wage, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, sorry for that, I just got a bit cold. Any further discussion or questions? Councillor Tate?
I noticed that there was a comparison of some other markets, but they're not written here, right?
That's right.
Okay, where did we land compared to those other markets?
So we are at currently, like right now, the vendor fees are lower.
Okay.
That's where we did a comparison, and by increasing the fees by about $5, $2 to $5, we're sort of on par now. We are where we should be.
Any further questions? Councillor Payne?
It's just, I've been noticing, I'm a regular market goer, and I've been noticing, and there may be other factors for this, but I guess I'm wondering if we did check in with the farmers, the people selling food, because it seems to me that there are less food vendors and more other vendors at the market than I'm used to seeing in previous years, and maybe that's pre-COVID and that's a different thing, but.
I think it really depends on whether you're at the Saturday market or the Wednesday market. And there are a number of food vendors at both markets, but the Saturday market definitely has more.
And you don't think that's a function of the fees? Do we have a
Not at
sense
all.
of that?
They're the advisory committee, right? They're still meeting?
Oh, there's a market advisory committee.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do we get minutes from that?
When they meet, they haven't met,
I think,
they meet 3 times a year.
Yeah, they don't meet all that often, so they
Okay.
Yeah.
can meet.
I just don't remember
And
seeing
there's
anything
like-
like that.
there's a food vendor, there's a farmer, there's a potter, there's a collection of different types of vendors on that committee, and we throw around like this kind of stuff, like what's fair, what can be afforded.
Good to know.
Any further questions?
Thanks for that.
Okay, so that's recommendation that one has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And that carries. Recommendation number 2. Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Tate. Councillor Woodward?
The fees and charge amendment, the fees and charges amendment, farmers market fees, bylaw number 3630, 2025 be read a third time by title only.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, councillors? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, councillors. Okay. Item number 11, recommendations from staff. So British Columbia's new Emergency and Disaster Management Act, the EDMA, mandates that all municipalities and regional districts engage in consultation and cooperation with Indigenous governing bodies across all phases of emergency management. To support compliance with these new regulations, the province has allocated $40,000 to each local authority. The Regional District of Central Kootenay has proposed a collaborative approach where all local authorities within the region pool the provincial funding to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of this initiative. So you've got a backgrounder there. Council, And I think that we can do both recommendations as one, so if we can get that on the floor, Councillor Page, seconded by Councillor Woodward. Councillor Page.
That the city of Nelson enter into the memorandum of understanding with the RDCK to collaborate on Indigenous engagement activities. And further, that the $40,000 provided to the city by the province to support the mandate under the Emergency and Disaster Management Act be transferred to the RDCK to manage the pooled Indigenous engagement funds on behalf of the participating municipalities while meeting the engagement requirements.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Tate, then Councillor Payne.
Can you help me understand what happens if one of the municipalities does not agree to the memorandum of understanding?
I think they would just pool whoever else is that has agreed to and work with those communities.
Councillor Page, would you like to add some clarification?
Yeah, I'll just clarify the discussion that was had at the board, given that we have our First Nation neighbors and partners, that it would be easier if we all kind of came together as one voice where possible. So they weren't trying to have a conversation with every single one of the municipalities around this kind of emergency disaster management. And so if one of the communities wanted to go have its own conversations, it's got its allocation, it can go do that. But we thought if we put it all together and have one conversation as a group, that's gonna be the most effective and we'll get the best value out of that, best relationship building.
Councillor Payne.
I thank you for all the work that went into this document. There's lots of information there and I was really glad to read it and see that we're moving forward. I do think that there would be an argument for not putting in the entire $40,000. I'm assuming that even with the work that would be done in collaboration, there would be work that the city will then be responsible for implementing in some way. And this, from what I understand, is year one of a 2 to possibly 3 year process. Anyone, any other thoughts around that? It just seems like $360,000 to do this kind of, if everyone does participate, to do this kind of, I just checked around with a number of other folks around the province that I'm familiar with and they felt that, like, are they gonna give money back if it doesn't get spent? Is that how it's gonna work with the RD?
We could clarify that. I'm not sure what, yeah, we should, we'll should get a budget from them on what their intent is and how they would spend this money, and that would be a good clarification. Because I think you're right, there could be work that we'd want to do directly. We did poll our staff and they felt this was the best way to move forward with this. I think those are good clarifications that we can.
I certainly understand the benefits of not overtaxing the relationships that we have. But I do think, I mean, I guess the other way we could do it is give 20 or 30 with a holdback if more was needed moving forward, and that way the individual municipalities could then proceed and do their work. But the understanding I have here is that we have to do this by the end of March, the government year end, to account that $40,000. Is that correct? Yeah. So we're sort of between a rock and a hard place here. We don't really have, because of when did we get this information? Has it taken a while, or is it one of those last minute things from the provincial government?
I think I've been working on it for a while now. I think this is just formalizing what sort of had been agreed to by the by the emergency management coordinators, that they felt this was the best route to utilize this money. So they have been working on this for quite a time. They just wanted to,
from November and December.
yeah, they just wanted to have it, from our perspective, we didn't think they needed, a council resolution to do this. This was grant funding that came in and we left it to the, the EM coordinators to say, what's the most effective way to, do this work that we're mandated to do under the act. But the RD wanted a formal resolution, that's why it's here late.
Yeah.
As But we could add another resolution resolution to that that in the event there's funding.
Overage.
Yeah, that there's there's funding available that, that's returned to the municipal, to the participants on a pro rata basis.
Yeah, cause that way we could
Yeah.
have the money in their hands satisfying our requirement to the province. But possibly, if they were to, it just seems like
It's
a
a-
lot of money
it's a
for
large
this
budget.
type of, if everyone participates, I mean, it's a different story, I guess, if not, I would be in favor of that, but. anyone
Counselor
else?
Page?
I just wanna highlight that just timelines, or at least the timelines now, and I don't know if it's the end of March or the 21st is the RDCK's deadline. But the things that the municipality would do is provide input to a hired consultant on individual municipality that's speaking for that shared work from emergency management that's being done. That's what I kind of, this funding, this pocket of funding is allocated for Indigenous engagement,
The whole thing.
yeah, I appreciate that. So that being picked up as a piece of individual work for our municipality versus Castlegar versus Caslow.
I'm not
Like-
suggesting that.
Right, so if we are then going to ask to modify this memorandum that the emergency directors are figuring out already, and then hold some of those funds, where would that fund be spent in the future? Like what are the requirements of the grant in the first place to, if
Yeah, I'd
it
have
was
to-
to flow back?
Yeah, we'd have to go back. I don't think it hurts to say in the event there's a funding surplus that would, or, well, maybe it's just the parties would meet to determine the best
Use of them funding.
use of those funds.
Yeah, I think that language is already here, right?
Yeah,
Like provide input for the consultant, provide, be an active partner in the project. The agreement can be changed by modification at any time between the participants.
yeah,
Okay, if everyone else is comfortable with it, I just wanted to raise it. I asked around to a number of different organizations who are in the same process, and they felt that that was an awful lot of money to be using for this process. So as long as we trust that any money that's not used specifically for this will somehow help the individual municipalities implement whatever comes out of this.
And so I think the key is that whatever this money is clearly to be used for emergency and disaster management. It can't be for any of our other engagement processes, so then it would come back and then we'd be having to look at an emergency and disaster management activity that we would engage with the local Indigenous community. It couldn't be that this is what we're gonna use now for the salmon day when they come to
Very
town.
clear.
and I think the RD does provide emergency management services to everyone other than ourselves. Castlegar and I think Creston is out as well now.
So do we
those-
know that those other communities have committed to this?
That's my understanding is that we're going the same route. I think there's the fact that we have all these small communities, that's why this amount adds up, right?
Yeah, and I mean, New Denver and Silverton got 40 as well, right?
Right, and Salmo and Caslow and we're sort of unique in terms of the number of small munis we have.
And I think that the manager of our emergency management oversight, and we also have Councillor Page here, is that I think that it is a big pool of money when you put that there's 20 people at our table versus some of the other regional districts who might be looking at this differently, that there are many projects I think that fall within emergency management that could be looked at if there is residual funding, and that, I mean, I think that you've heard us deliver that message, and so I'm sure it will go back to the emergency management table, so.
Makes sense.
Any other concerns about this, council? my hope is that we can get all of the Indigenous communities to the table together. I think that might be the bigger challenge
Mhm.
versus trying to get the municipalities all together. So it'll be interesting to see how this work flows out, because I think it is inherently will have some challenges. All those in favor of the motion, opposed, and that carries.
Is that 1 and 2 or?
It was all together, it was read as one motion, because it doesn't make anything without the money attached to the bottom end. Item 11B is our time to chat about the AKBLG resolutions. And so resolutions for AKBLG at the 2025 Association of Kootenay Boundary Local Governments Annual General Meeting to be held on April 25th to the 27th must be submitted by the end of this month, February the 28th. Staff suggested ideas via email for these resolutions on January 3rd and received 2 resolutions from council for consideration. There are 2 resolutions that are a repeat of UBCM resolutions. So there's a number here, and then I have a couple more that I would like to discuss, and if anybody else still has one, and then we'll get the final, this will come back to us, and we'll just add this, we'll have a special meeting to officially pass which ones are gonna go forward at our February 21st meeting to meet the deadline of February the 28th. Councillor Payne.
Oh, sorry, I'm just counting 6. So there's 7 here in total? No, there's 8 in total?
7 here.
So, okay, I didn't have enough fingers on that hand, okay.
So how do we do it again? I forget. We move them all and then we talk about each of them individually, or we move them individually and talk about them if we want to?
Talk about.
For you.
So I would, if, you can do whatever you like,
Okay.
but I would suggest you move the resolution, which includes the 7, not the 3 that the
Yeah, I
mayor
have
has.
3
to chat
some
about
of them
as well.
Okay, so
And
start
then
with
if
the
there's
7.
anything you wanna pull out to talk about or change.
Okay.
Not even change, you will do that at the February 20, no, we're gonna bring, if there's anything you want added to the resolutions or changed, we should do that.
But we have to move first to make a change? Cause
Actually, if we don't, then
it's simpler.
it's way simpler.
Okay, I would like to speak.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, the increased funding and requirement for civics education. I wrote this one, I've been thinking about it a lot. I would like to take out or rethink the word insufficient teacher training, because I think that could be misread. It's the second whereas. I think that could be misunderstood.
I think you pull the whole whereas.
That, you think you pull the whereas, the whole whereas?
Can you just say it's undervalued?
I think you know what, I agree with Councillor Page, I think it muddies the water, so
So
just take it
the
out, yeah, unless anybody else is really attached to that
Try
whereas.
to keep it to 2 whereas.
Yeah,
Okay. To 2 whereases? Is that what you would
That's
like?
the goal.
First and third.
Okay.
okay.
That's what you want to see from all these? I mean, I just always think like, my rule of thumb is the whereases don't count, so just make sure that you've
So-
got whatever you wanna have happen in the therefore be it resolved.
That's all I
Yeah,
do.
and further to that, I would take out the sufficient and the therefore be it resolved. Cause again, it could imply that something is insufficient,
So take out the whole
just the word sufficient,
access to professional development? Okay.
and take out the word training as well. Professional development, maybe opportunities, resources and support.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so now that we fixed the wordsmithing
Okay,
of that,
thank you.
can we try something like, let's see how fast we can do this.
Okay, that was it.
So, is everybody in agreement that that would be a good one to take forward?
I'm good.
Everybody good? Everybody good? Okay, good. Number 1's going. Okay. They're gonna come back on the 21st, but if we don't
So
have to have any
can
more
we-
discussion about that?
Can we potentially agree, like, broad topics, they would be potentially open to amendment between now and the final meeting when we vote on them?
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
Like,
that works.
cause like, there could be some input, we
Yeah.
could do some rounds and then settle in some language that we officially adopt, but we all agree more civics education, like that.
So, yeah, and, yes,
And I would work with the sponsor on potentially some of the things being targeted here. and then we would bring wording to the future meeting. I think it'll, rather than us wrangle words here.
So I'll just tell you what our process is as staff. So I'm going to get this resolution tonight. You may add some, you may not. You can see the 7 that we have here all have resolutions attached to them. We will, depending on what you would like to see, if there's 3 added to that, they don't have resolutions attached. But this, if you want to wordsmith, we can. But ultimately it goes to Sonia and Maddie to work on, and Sonia to bring back on the 21st, to the 21st meeting, special meeting for all of council to see. You'll see the resolutions laid out. You can amend them at that time, or we can, for the 7 that we have right now, we have resolutions for, we can wordsmith away or not, up to you.
Okay, I agree with the getting agreement in principle, and if the sponsor notices or if other people notice any wordsmithing before the 21st when it's official, we could just email it.
Totally fine.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that works.
Great,
Okay, I think that's what you said.
that's what I said.
And can you email Maddie and Sonia? Like
Both of them?
both of them? Because they're the 2 that will be working on them and then bringing the document back to you guys.
Perfect.
And it's probably important that the gist of the resolution, not just.
Gets agreed to.
The intent.
Just not.
Yeah.
We all agree rural transportation, but what we're really identifying here, wordsmithing, we should word it differently versus the intent of what this is. I think you should hash out tonight. That'd be hard for them to
I agree.
change with that intent.
Yeah, that's what I say, it's like the whereases, like, it's the therefore be it resolved is the piece of the prize. Like, cause whereas is, I mean, we rate the best whereases going compared to what I read when I go to these meetings, because half the time the whereases conflict with each other, and thank God that they're not the what you're going for. So it's the therefore be it resolves that need to be clear and asking what we want for.
So.
The background is nice.
Can I just jump in one more thing too, is that I received only 2 resolutions from council. So there were 2, I think 3 that the mayor, for the rest that staff wanted to see put forward as well. So, or as suggestions, I suppose.
Some of these were for me,
Some
only
of
because of the
these-
fact that we hadn't heard from some councils, and then I have 3 other ones, but there's a bit of overlap here
Yeah.
between.
And so I think Kevin is right, like we definitely need, especially on the ones that came from staff, not from council, we definitely need you to think about what the resolution is.
So can you let them know which are which?
Well, civics education came from council and first past the post came from council.
Okay.
And the other ones,
Transportations came from me,
transportation,
Both of them?
because
or
I
one
knew
of them?
that Council Lockenberg would want them probably there,
so,
but they can be pulled.
but again, pay attention to, and the this transportation ones, the water security came from the mayor. And then the repeat offenders and homeless population and police resources came from staff as well. So just keep that in mind.
Did you say the mayor, you did the water security one?
Well, these are important things. I even
I'm so impressed.
I even brought that up with, I brought that up at the Board of Mayors, cause
Thank you, I love it.
I'm just sort of thinking like water, like they're worried about carports, and I was kind of worried about water, so. Not that it had any impact in my conversation with them today, but I'll keep saying it. Rural transportation, so let's just go to the next one and just take a little gander at that one, and we've been talking about this a lot. That we need to have better rural transportation services.
So I just wanna, this one and the last one, a lot of these therefores lead with the association Kootenay boundary do this, that, or the other thing, so there may be places where you wanna say the UBCM versus the AKBLG, but for the civics education one specifically, and this is some of the wording I'll talk to Kate about, it really focuses in on funding, whereas I would maybe shift some of that language to, you know, making a requirement for the curriculum and there's a place for association Kootenay boundary potentially to even, it does pretty well on the trade show side of things, and there's monies there that maybe they could make investments or support civics education in the region, right? It doesn't have to be anything big, but you might wanna say that the association support,
I guess,
Support?
yeah,
I
potentially.
guess when you say that regionally that we have money, so CBT does do some things and CBAL does some things. But I always think of these, Councillor Page, and perhaps I've gotten this wrong over the last 20 years, is that we're supposed to try to rate these with the opportunity that there's a lens that they will be accepted at a provincial level as well, because we're taking these two also, UBCM, hopefully.
Not all of them, they don't all have to go to UBCM.
That we would see action on them at UBCM, and I would think that, well, particularly with around education on civics, I'd say that our area is probably doing quite well compared to many other jurisdictions within the province, and I would wanna see an education one or a civics one like this being going to UBCM for a broader provincial,
Yes, I
Look.
agree, we agree on that, I'm just saying there's two components to it. Right, like there's been discussions in the past about how we support, when Christine Benty is brought in by different municipalities to do, even that is civics education, to have a training opportunity for people interested in running for local government. Sometimes local governments step up and do that, sometimes they don't, and the association's had that conversation before about providing a more even amount of that programming throughout the region preceding the local elections. And so there's a way that this first one is kind of split and goes to the province to say we need to have a requirement around the curriculum versus the funding will come with that, to have this more consistently across all the students. But then there's also young adults or adults of all ages looking to run for councils and mayors, and that there's,
You're
I think that's, you
You're
changed the
changing the
intent of her.
Well, I
you
think
changed her
there's
intent.
two.
Yeah.
So then make
Two.
another resolution.
and make a new one.
Yeah, you've changed the
Not
intent
piggybacking on that one
of
for what local.
So don't, and you know what, and that's the problem, I would say, Councillor Page, is when people put together and put 5 thoughts together that are all good thoughts, but really should have been separate resolutions, so
Fair enough.
if you wanna have education about the process of local government and running for office and such,
It's
and
all civics.
engagement, then I would say, I'm fully in favor of you writing another motion that comes to the 21st that we then put forward, but that's not the intent from when I read Councillor Tate's motion.
It's to illustrate the point that all of these are very angled at the AKBLG, so if we're gonna have the AKBLG do something, that would be an example of what we would.
So better
And
language.
we may wanna change this to UBCM.
So better language would be then, on this one, what I'm looking at here, enhancing rural transportation systems in Nelson and the region, is in fact what's missing here in terms of what it says. It should be, therefore be it resolved that the Association of Kootenay and Boundary Local Governments, AKBLG, advocate UBCM for increased funding and resources from provincial and federal governments, because that's their role.
Right, but I think the way we usually, they pass through AKBLG, so we
Well,
would say
exactly, but-
UBCM.
But we could write that in there, that we want UBCM to, like, that AKBLG is
Yeah,
going to advocate to UBCM to advocate to, because they're supposed to represent us.
Right, which would be good, so it could be an and, or it could be a second resolution, but if we want this resolution to pass through AKBLG and get on the floor at UBCM, then we shouldn't be talking about AKBLG, maybe we should say UBCM, right, cause that's the question, do we want this to stop at AKBLG, or do we want it to go on to UBCM?
No, but if you wrote that therefore we resolve that the association
Yeah.
advocate to UBCM,
Yeah.
so I'm
Right,
adding, so that you put in, so he's saying that's,
Yeah.
we're missing the UBCM part, that we would put that in there, in the wording.
I know, but
Got it.
what I'm saying is that that's great, and that, I think we can have this resolution if we want to target AKBLG. But if we want it to go through and get on the floor at UBCM, if we want AKBLG to present this resolution at UBCM, then we
Okay,
should
well,
word
that's
it
fine, but
differently.
then, yeah, then take out that, put in the rate organization then, I mean, that's easy enough.
So, can I just clarify?
Mm-hmm.
So
put
we're
it in
saying
the-
therefore be it resolved that UBCM
Yeah,
petition.
advocate for increased funding and
Okay.
resources.
Yeah,
Is
which
that-
That should probably be the case for all of them, cause is that not our
Yeah.
intention? We're not.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
think so, but
Okay.
Okay.
there's some times where we do wanna direct AKBLG, it's
Okay,
just
Yeah.
maybe not
It's-
for these
did
ones.
last year.
okay.
Okay.
So then I think, would you be able to tell by the resolutions whether they're meant for the bigger stage? Or should we talk about that each
Just
time
don't-
as well?
I think
Just wherever we say AKBLG, just replace.
just remove it
change
and
it.
just change it,
Yeah.
cause I
I
think
like
these are all going to UBCM.
Control F, replace all.
Was that how that works? Control F, replace
Is that
all?
how you do it?
Jesus, okay.
Did you know that?
Every time I come here, I learn something new.
Okay.
Councillor Payne.
My understanding is when we bring resolutions forward, they're stronger when they get to the UBCM floor if they don't apply to a specific geographic area. So we're talking about rural communities. Does that have to be in Nelson? Aren't we talking about rural communities really throughout the province are looking for the same thing, are we not? And I think that would give us more support on the resolutions floor at UBCM.
So take
Do
out
we-
Nelson,
yeah,
so in the
just-
therefore be it resolved. I mean, the fact that it's in the whereas, I mean, is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, whereas rural
And
communities.
it is in
rely
the therefore it be resolved as
And it
well.
could be,
It
yeah,
says
so-
Nelson, so we just take it.
So she's just talking about, so
Rural transportation
period.
services, period. Yep, okay.
That's always, it's always been the goal when I've been thinking about these things, that you're always trying to get them
Yeah.
to UBCM.
Yeah, we wanna make
Can I-
sure that,
Is this coming from you, Rick? This is yours?
No, none of these, this
No,
is.
this is mine.
So are we trying to avoid saying transit for a reason, or are we trying specifically to target
well,
inter-community connection?
transportation is wider.
It speaks to public transportation, but is it trying to, the whole ecosystem, or are we targeting intercommunity
Yeah, I think
transportation?
transit would be better.
Like
'Cause we're
Vancouver to
talking-
Nelson?
We're talking about
kind of
rural riders, for consistency, we're talking about rural riders, which is, you wouldn't say that's transit. Riders.
Public transportation?
I mean, that's,
It's just
Keith's right.
transportation.
if we could make it
Transit falls
transit,
under
that would be
transportation,
better.
doesn't it?
I know,
Does it
but
transit fit into transportation?
Yeah.
it
does
does,
for me.
Transit
but,
doesn't take you to Vancouver, Kelowna, but an
but it could
intercommunity
mean,
bus
in the way
does.
the province is interpreting that, cause they did it in their rural strategy, they talked about transportation, they forgot to mention transit, and that was a big issue for us, because roads and road maintenance take up a massive amount of the budget compared to transit, and so, yeah, they may invest more in roads, but not in transit. That's at least, as an example of how they interpret transportation more broadly. They might just put it into road maintenance.
Well,
Or bridges.
the next,
And
the
then
next
say-
one has transit in it.
Good, yeah.
So what is the intent is the question, and should we write it as, make sure we're writing it as such?
Yeah, it just, do you wanna make it, if it's gonna be transit, really, then we should say transit.
We say rural riders, so.
Yeah, and we say rural riders, exactly.
Transit.
I don't really care. I mean,
Yeah.
these,
I think this is talking about transit, and so it should say transit.
Yeah, because we've had this exact issue before about saying rural transportation and having it misinterpreted as not necessarily transit.
More concrete.
Yeah,
We
maybe
do
more
talk
pavement.
about-
and in the background, we talk about
Yeah.
transit, like we kind of go,
Yeah.
the unique transportation needs, because they are unique, and we talk about transit, I mean, whatever word you want to pick, I'm not
Yeah,
offended by
Transit.
whatever you want to change, I'm not
Transit.
I'm a scientist, not an English major.
Cause a separate issue, and they've talked about it in the past 18 months, has been what goes on with the BC North bus, that inter-community
Mhm.
Greyhound
So is that
replacement.
transit?
Yeah.
That
Well,
doesn't replace, I want to be very clear about that,
Transit, I
I'm
think
saying
it's
that that replaces
transportation.
Greyhound, that is a health-driven initiative there,
My apologies, thank you so much for the clarity, I am schooled.
thank
You
you.
don't have to.
It's just that, it's not, that it didn't replace the Greyhound bus, I mean, it's a health,
it-
you
to
pay
illustrate
$20 or whatever to,
So this is
think it's a
geared
health
towards
transportation.
transit, like more of what we're doing in the West Kootenay transit system, just more of it.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't get us to Kelowna
No,
or
no.
Cranbrook or anywhere else.
But the regional, we've been having this at West Kootenay Transit and above. They understand that when we're talking about regional and inter-regional transit, we're ultimately talking about getting from Nelson to Vancouver.
Eventually.
The connections between, yeah.
Okay, fair.
And if necessary, and if it's effective, then they can continue to optimize it, maybe have direct routes and things like that.
Okay, fair enough.
It's kind of all part of the same infrastructure.
So then the next one should say it should say transit for seniors or health transit for seniors
But it
as
says
opposed
seniors.
to.
Take out seniors altogether.
And seniors is not mentioned all the way
Yeah,
through,
you
so I don't
seniors
think
could just be taken out and actually then,
other people need to travel for health as well.
yeah, no, and
You have
that,
to be a senior.
so one of the things I had here was, when I was talking to, this was the thing when I was saying about talking with, Wayne Price from Cranbrook, right? Was to try to find something and that he was gonna try to find some time to write something. I thought if we had something, and then we would just share it, and it's really about that healthcare transportation system that now they need it too. I mean, and so if we can get both of us to put the same resolution down, because we know AKPLG doesn't take like-minded resolutions and commingle them into one, I thought we could share and decide who wrote the best resolution and both submit the same thing from our tables.
Makes sense.
So in this one, it says that the first therefore be it resolved.
So then we have to change it to UBCM.
Yeah, I've got that. And then it says, in the third line down, it says improvement of healthcare transportation infrastructure.
Transit.
So should it be transit infrastructure or should it just be transit?
I would, if we're talking about healthcare, I would keep transportation infrastructure,
Okay,
because healthcare transportation may include the flights.
okay.
Flights and some, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Could be a different system of ambulance or,
Okay.
okay, so you're okay, everybody likes the word transportation there in this one, okay?
And so
Do we
in
take
the,
out East and West Kootenays?
No, because we wanna have it cover the whole,
and in
I
the
mean-
title, can it
Don't you
be
just say interior
transportation infrastructure in the west and east Kootenays?
Health transport.
Transportation,
Health.
This related to the earlier one is an interesting question.
Mhm.
I like east and west Kootenays being explicitly stated here. It
Okay.
might make it harder to get votes at UBCM, but I don't think so. This is the kind of thing that just get passed.
Yeah.
and it's not just, I mean, we got 3 therefore be it resolves in this, which is a bit heavy,
fix
but I
that,
mean,
we
yeah.
can change
I
it.
think East and, it could be that we could have that as, well, we have it up there in the whereases, that the East and West Kootenay, I mean,
Yeah.
You could say rural health authorities. Right, like the interior health has a budget and comes in and that helps Health Connect and that's what's supporting transit, like that's how it's delivered.
Yeah.
You're really just saying within the rural health authorities is where you need to see this improvement.
The only reason why I think keeping the east and west Kootenays in here is, one, I don't think it's gonna get voted against because it's explicitly mentioning east and west, and two, it does highlight, it puts emphasis on us and our challenges here, which may be the same more broadly.
How about southern interior?
I think, can we just leave it the way it is instead of wordsmithing it to death? Because we also have 2 more there for be it resolved, where we don't, like we have the middle one, we don't talk about the East and West Kootenays. I mean, I think we have, I think it's okay to advocate for ourselves a bit, and I mean, I think this one I could easily send to Wayne Price and he would take it to his council and probably get it passed for support.
So there's
Yeah.
3, therefore be it resolved.
Resolves, yeah.
So you're saying pick
I
one?
think 1 and 2
No, no.
can go together, but that's.
So can I just clarify, do you want the whereases and the West Kootenays and the Kootenays and the whereases, and then the resolution is more general to rural? Because we're basically saying, here's our problem, and, it might be a larger problem, but
Your problem
But
too.
we're just speaking to our problem, yeah. Like I personally think we should keep and emphasize that this is east and west Kootenays or southern interior, but I think that might get interpreted as including Kelowna, and I don't think they have the same issue as we have out here.
Regional hospital system sends a lot of people to Kelowna, like you need to get from Cranbrook to Kelowna.
Right.
But not from Vernon to Kelowna, there is transit already, if you
Yeah.
need to go.
You don't
from
have the
Vernon.
Okanagan main line, you don't have the Okanagan corridor has,
Soyuz and Penticton, they don't.
Yeah,
Probably
the
have
idea that we're
transit.
shoe swap to Kamloops or
Yeah.
whatever as
Yeah.
well, right? I'm sure we got just as
Yeah.
much challenges there.
I just think that gives us more lobbying effect when we say UBCM supports the East and West Kootenays in this in this ask, which
And they can, I guess, change it on the floor if
they could,
broaden it.
yeah, they could, somebody will stand up and like, I'd like to propose an amendment.
I do like Kevin's suggestion of, you have the whereases hold the background on East and West Kootenays, and then your enactment
Oh,
clauses.
yeah,
Your
sure,
enactment clauses are more rural
yeah,
health authority than that. Does both.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're taking the word seniors out.
Yeah, we're not gonna have that in the title.
Okay.
We could call it health transportation, this one versus
Just
Yeah.
health
The other one being-
transportation?
Rural health transportation.
rural health transportation versus the other one, which was transit. So that deals with my little thing
Okay.
for Wayne Prentice, okay.
Screen changed over.
Sorry, can we just go back? So the title, Enhancing Rural Transportation Systems in Nelson and the Region.
Rural health transportation.
Enhancing rural, is it transportation or transit?
Oh, she's back on the
What
first
do you
one.
want?
I'm back
Oh, on
to
the
the,
first one.
Enhancing rural transit systems,
Yeah.
period.
okay. Perfect, thank you, sorry. Just wanna be clear.
Get this.
Transit, this one's being transit.
Okay. And then we're on, the next is first past the post.
And Councillor Payne will have to explain this to the rest of us.
No,
Paige,
Yeah, not me.
It's clean, it's concise, it makes perfect sense.
I like it.
oh, so yours doesn't have to be wordsmithed.
No, of course, I did great.
It does have the Union of British Columbia Municipalities.
ChatGPT.
I'll speak to the intent here. So I believe that getting electoral reform on some level is critical to our democracy long term. I think one of the challenges, there's been lots of efforts over the years, both provincially and federally, is getting people familiar with a different voting system. I think one of the low risk places you can do that, because we run our own elections, is enabling the ability for a municipality for the mayoral race. No problems with the current mayor, of course. But I think giving the option.
Speak for yourself, I guess, perhaps.
I think given the option to choose to go to from a first past the post system to a ranked ballot would allow the opportunity for some municipalities to choose to allow people to vote for their first, second, and third candidate, and in doing so would always elect the candidate that the most amount of the members wanted to see represent them. And so I think it's a little bit of a technical ask, but I think if it was to happen, it would be a great way for people to get familiar with another voting system. And it would protect their rights, so. And their intent.
Yeah, Councillor Pinero.
Seeing how we do run our own municipal elections, are we actually not allowed to do that
No.
now?
Governed by the LGA.
It's defined, it's laid out in the Local Government Act how an election can be held, and so you would modify that section to provide for another system that you could choose from. So you could do first past the post, or you could do, a ranked choice. And they would outline how those are.
That's come from the province.
They'd have to change the name of
Province
the
has to change it.
legislation.
So there would be choices that the province vets and approves, not just
Yeah.
Yeah.
municipalities can decide.
Councillor Page, yes, are you suggesting individual municipalities could do things differently?
I would suggest that the legislation would enable choices, and then individual municipalities would have a mechanism where they could switch from one way to another way. And I would even envision that once you'd switched, it would not be quite so easy to switch back, though not impossible. Maybe it takes 2 terms to vote to switch the system back.
Suggest it might be unlikely they're gonna kind of have different systems.
I think you should have an arm wrestling system.
Councillor Woodward, I'm just going over there, it's just like,
I mean, I think anytime you introduce policy that can shift and change across municipalities, across a province.
That's confusion.
It's really confusing very quickly, and then maybe people who move from one municipality to another are familiar with the system. So you're just adding layers of complexity. I would just say if you're either gonna do first past the post or you're gonna do ranked voting, but it seems incredible. And generally, I would say the province is not, from what I've seen, they're into having multiple policies around the province doing similar actions. They want one policy so everyone can understand it.
No, pick your own adventure.
Yeah, so,
You probably would want the whole election done that, council and mayor.
It isn't council, oh no.
I
guess not.
would
Like council always strikes me as it looks like it's ranked ballots, but
It's not
it's-
really.
it's
no.
not really, but that would be very
I think you just
Odd.
explode
It's
it.
it's really, ranked voting is used when you're voting for one position.
Yeah.
Not multiple positions, cause you're already sort of ranking it, that's why six get elected and you don't all get elected with the same number of
and
votes.
sometimes people vote for 2
Yes,
out of the 6, right?
well, you know what, you don't have to fill out, even if it's ranked voting, you don't have to pick a second person. You can put all your eggs in one basket on a ranked vote.
I don't remember.
What was the question?
Who was the
Who's the
least
least
favorite of the
favorite
6 of
counselor
us?
on the council right now, is it you?
Least favorite.
Just
So,
squeaked
would this
in.
not be more of like a UBCM? Like a.
So here's the question, it's not for us to debate whether or not this is an appropriate thing to do, because just be honest, and I think this is kind of like crazy making, like first past the post is something that needs to be done provincially and federally, but like this is, like we're all allowed to bring something to the table, so is this something that you just can't tolerate putting forward? Or is this something that we feel, let's put it out there and see how it's decided?
Well, hold on, pump the brakes, because we've been to AKBLGs where we're like scrambling of who's gonna speak to something, cause.
Well, Counselor Page will have to speak, do it.
So I wouldn't put this one forward. I don't think, I think we need to be more clear on what it is that we want and whether we want it provincially and, yeah. So not only would I not speak to it, I don't think I'd support it coming from this table in this format.
Can we advocate for something like that to be a thing provincially? Like, would that be the
But
resolution?
this is what you're doing. This is what
I
you're,
know,
oh,
but just word it that way.
oh,
instead
to
of-
try to change the
like,
provincial election things.
exactly.
But we've done that, so the provincial government has had a referendum
I
and
know.
failed.
Let's do it
I
again.
know,
So is
but
it time
so
to have another
the resolution
referendum?
would be to
Twice
do
at
it
least.
again.
You gotta
If
socialize
that's what
it.
you wanna do.
So never get an
I
arena.
like this learning thing though, it's like training wheels, you know?
This is to socialize it in
Yeah.
a lower risk situation
Yeah.
where it can be clearer and better understood.
I think it could be a high risk situation, I mean. Don't minimize local government, I mean, it could be you say in a low risk, I mean, I think, I've always been an
Don't
advocate of
spin my
first
words
past the
that
post.
way.
I've always been an advocate of first past the
You know
post.
what, you know what I like about this though for mayor, it's people do take it personally and it kind of bleeds out a bit of the emotion out of it. So if the second place person, they're like, ooh, I really love this guy, I really hate that person, but that person's okay. Well, that person's likely to win, right? Like it does, and we've had this challenge in mayoral BC politics of the extremes getting in. This is a mitigation for that. So it
So
makes sense to me.
all we're asking here for is that it's not about whether or not this is the right resolution or the wrong resolution. Do we wanna put this forward for debate at AKBLG? This is what we're asking. I mean, I think it's written correctly. I don't think,
Well,
you're right, it doesn't have to be wordsmith.
Excuse me.
It's written correctly. The ask is clear
Are we just gonna vote on it?
and
Let's go for
and
it.
we need to take a vote.
Can I just
Let's
can I just add one thing, cause I do agree with the clarity though.
Yeah.
I would argue that giving them the choice
Yeah.
is
No, that's gotta go.
unnecessary complexity.
That's gotta go.
They don't need the choice, just, it's gonna, when you advocate for it, it's gonna be the same effect. Cause it's gonna get to the province, they'll be like, it's too complicated, if we're gonna do it, let's just do it.
And who's gonna make that choice?
Yeah, and who's gonna make the choice, and
Is it
I do think.
outgoing mayor and
The
council?
outgoing first past the post mayor who was like, whoa, squeaked in.
I do think, and I do think it could pass, like the province could be like, yeah, ranked choice for mayor, it makes sense, if it prevents what happened in Kamloops, then great.
So basically what you wanna do then is take out option and take out, and then that in the second one, that choose.
Yeah, take out the option aspect of it.
Option out of the first resolution, and then it's that choose out of the
Yeah.
second resolution.
I can support that.
We can figure that out.
I am
So it
looking
stays-
forward to this conversation, I gotta tell you.
That's good, that's fine.
Are you voting on it?
Yeah, we're gonna vote.
Okay.
So all those in favor of it going forward?
Sure.
And you're gonna speak to it.
Still, it's in the package.
You put your hand up first.
Yeah, we want to.
It's Jesse's.
It's Jesse's nightmare.
Never do that.
You did. You did a great job.
You're just fiddling around the edges, huh?
Keep going for the.
So can I just ask a quick question about that one? The
Yeah.
last, and be it further resolved that the provincial government provide guidelines and support for municipalities that choose to
No,
implement.
no,
Get
to
rid of
implement,
that.
that choose has to go.
Trace is gone.
That choose.
Oh, right here.
So you have to make it so that it's either we're doing it or we're not doing it, and everybody.
You can just remove that,
Municipalities.
actually.
Yeah.
Just remove it.
Yeah, you just,
remove the
that
and
choose goes
resolved.
away.
That choose is gone.
That whole result can be gone, because if the province is gonna implement a new thing, they're gonna provide support for
Yeah.
implementation.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
it's superfluous.
Well, hopefully they supply support, because I looked at Sarah there and the thought, like, it's bad enough to organize a election on a good day, let alone an election with new rules. I started thinking
Takes a
like,
year, just so everyone knows.
that we wanna make sure that maybe there was some assistance, like cash.
Money, yeah. The voting machines that will then hack.
Okay,
Alright,
so we have to just change the language, the AKBLGs have to turn to UBCMs, and I think we are, I don't know, wordsmith this to get to death if we wanna have it.
Where are we?
water security.
We're at water security.
I really like this one.
Water security, yeah, I'm in.
And we're just changing the AKBLGs to UBCMs.
UBCM, okay.
I mean, I just thought, you know, that before the snow we had, you know, I was so grateful for the snow we were getting up top, but it was like, you know, up till a moment ago, it was like snowless, and I was just like, man, if this is happening up top,
It kind of was, like, we didn't have a lot of snow up top
it's
either.
true. It was pretty nerve-wracking. I'm so glad we got what we got, but yeah, it feels like every year is gonna be a bit of a, you throw the dice and just hope, right?
Yeah. Okay, so everybody's good with this one?
Yes.
Any wordsmithing? We're all happy? Okay,
Next one is
Repeat offenders.
repeat
repeat
offenders.
offenders. So we'll change the,
So UBCM.
Yep.
Mhm.
Good with this one.
And I think, I don't know if anybody read the last release from the police, but that's exactly.
God, that's it.
It was unbelievable.
And I mean, he can have bail, and what are like 5 of his offenses? Breaking bail, like breaking the constraints around
Straight to his
his
release,
his
yeah.
Can't do
release.
this, that, and this, and who's following him around?
Yeah, totally.
Is that something that gets released to all the businesses on Baker Street?
Like,
So that, so
an
that they
alert
know
or-
he's.
Well, it's on the Nelson, it's on the police website, and I think the city, did we pick it up? Did we pick up the media it's on the police website, and I think that, do we pick it up as the City of Nelson website? I think it's on our
Yeah.
website as well.
that's, their website is our website, they have, yeah.
Yeah,
So if you're a business owner, you know to go and look at that.
Well, I don't know what, we can ask.
I'm
I,
just
well, I
wondering,
mean, some of the business
if
owners,
that
I,
information came out,
yeah,
I would love it to come to my email
Business.
inbox or my Okay. whatever, to say, this has just happened, if you see him, call us, here's the
Yeah.
number.
it's a media release from the department. And I know that because I don't do social media, I get people from the business community send me a screenshot of the release. So I know businesses are
Getting it somehow.
somehow,
So the savvy businesses are.
yes. And the chamber is
Yeah, that-
probably on there. I know that Silk has a very long list of media people that it goes out to. So I imagine it goes to the chamber as well.
We can ask.
I'm not a business owner, but I am a member of the chamber and I didn't see anything, so.
We'll ask her.
Okay, so we're good on repeat offenders and we are then down to additional policing resources.
Are we asking for some like stable funding or, because right now we don't, how much money do we get from the province? Really nothing.
Nothing.
So what's the mechanism? Are we asking for a new program? Are we asking for, or just, you figure it out, just give us money? I mean, I'm okay with that if that's the.
Well, there was legislation around repeat offenders with more
Additional
serious
police
crimes. So is that
Yeah.
what we're asking for here? Similar legislation?
I think that would be good and that kind of money that flows with it. There was a lot of money. There was like 14 or 15 million dollars that went into the repeat violent offenders. I mean, I think this one needs to be tightened up. I don't think this is a good one the way it is right now. That's my own thoughts on it. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one we just talked about?
No, this one that we're just looking at. The next one, the homeless population police resourcing.
I
This
definitely,
is my question. Which
Are
one are
we
we on?
down
Are
The
we on
police-
street population?
We're on
police
7.
resources,
I
yeah,
think repeat offenders went okay.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was making sure we're on the same one.
yeah, so more money is great, It just, if,
Yeah, no, I think 7 needs just to be looked at some more.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll be creative and
If that actually went away and we had less repeat offenders, it actually
Then we wouldn't.
turns
need this
out
one.
that's like 70% of the calls that they get
Yep.
is from
Yeah.
3 people.
yeah,
So it's
kind of,
it
yeah.
kind of deals with it already.
You don't need this one afterwards.
yeah, we don't need the next one
We
afterwards,
don't
because
get
we won't
this
have
one,
any
we want
problems.
this one,
Yeah.
but we want that one, yeah.
This
So
is-
anyway, so we'll just put this one, we'll put number 7 aside for a little bit and we'll see if there's time to get creative to bring it back on the 21st.
That's a Band-Aid, the other one's an upstream solution.
Well, and maybe you want, in the event that, they don't change the,
Yeah,
Repeat offenders.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they
have a
provide
backup.
resources to us
Yeah.
to
just
Well, I think we just have to rework it, I just don't think it reads really, because right now this is actually very Nelson specific as well, so
yeah,
it's problematic for me that it's too specific to us. I just think that, I'm not saying that it's not a go, but I think we just need to look at this one a little bit different and hone in.
Yeah, you could
The ask
probably
is a
say,
little bit,
yeah, support additional policing resources for communities to deal with,
repeat offenders.
well, essentially.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're tying
you
it
can
together,
emphasize,
right?
you emphasize it, yeah, it's a double, it's like, yeah.
so, so I have a few more and that don't have a that don't have a background in a therefore be it resolved. And it's more about, so I just wanna discuss them in terms of if there's any flavor and then I'll go and do some work. And so one of them is on the regional approach to homelessness. And I'll just let you know is that when the 3 of us mayors met, we kind of parsed out kind of like maybe if we all agreed, again, this idea that let's all rate the same resolution, send it in so that we're not debating, 15 resolutions and 5 of them are the same except for the, which order the therefore be it resolves we're in. And so, Mayor of Trail, Colleen said that she would try to look at drafting something about a regional approach to homelessness. So looking at the idea of how we approach the government to make sure that there's regional funding and that each community is receiving, the opportunity to build appropriate housing for their community, right? Sort of on a broad basis, because that's what we hear, is that we need to have a regional approach. So let's get a resolution going regarding that. So that's one, and I'm hoping that she gets it completed and we can put it into the package and it can get circulated around and it'll be here on the 21st. And I, in the meantime, will try to figure out what one might look like that looks like that.
I wonder about using I know we know what regional approach means, but I'm curious if we could be less nebulous and more precise when we're saying like, all of the places are doing the thing. As opposed to a regional approach where they're like, you have regional healthcare, you have a hospital in Kelowna, you're in the interior region, right? So I'm cautious about the word regional approach, that phrase. And I would like to be more precise and a little bit more like dingy.
Okay, I'm gonna get you to write it then.
No.
You can be more dingy. But I'm just giving you the fact that these were things that we discussed.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that somebody will use some of their staff. I depend on staff here to help me make sure things are written correctly. Hopefully, it's not like they're staffless, so hopefully their staff can help. And then we can look at things like that about words that aren't clear enough. The other one was the discussion that we always have, and this is to look at the sort of healthcare aspects, and it would be on detox beds and rehabilitation beds. We're not talking about homes, we're talking about service provision for those people that need it, of which we have none in our region, right? So looking at rehab and detox and bed distribution again. So that was one that Mayor McFadden was gonna work on, because Castlegar does have 9 detox beds that are currently underutilized and are constantly at a risk of being closed.
Is that because the intake is on Tuesday mornings?
Well, I don't know that it's only one day of intake, but that's what Kevin has heard, and I don't know about that. What happens is that the fact is that the people get in, and with talking with the people that work in there, and detox is only a limited length of stay, and they get to the end of their stay and there is no rehab bed for them to go to, so then they go back to their community and the cycle starts all over again, and maybe they go back in, and they know those beds in Castlegar that there are repeat bed users because they hit their whatever and they go, I want a detox, and they go and there's still no bed. So whether or not there's some improvement in the system there that they could stay longer while they wait, or the fact that we have to have those other beds so that they can transition on, and those would be rehab beds. So it's very specific about detox and rehab. And because rehab takes such a long time, yes, there is a third step, there's reintegration, but that's where, at that point, hopefully more communities would have supportive housing beds, that then those people could transition into after rehab. So it was very specific around detox and rehab that we had this discussion in terms of trying to formulate a tighter resolution. And the need for that, because, those 9 beds should be used, they're normally very underutilized, which is really unfortunate. And again, I often hear that transportation ties into this a little bit, but you know what? I have to travel the trail to have my dialysis, so maybe I have to travel 30 kilometers to get a service, or 60 kilometers to get a service. But the idea is still of a regional approach. I don't think that every community, and you can't afford it, like the system can't afford to have detox in every, rehab in every community, because it takes specialized staff to have that. So the reality is you're gonna have to go somewhere, but it could be a lot closer than going to Vancouver. So there was that one, and then there was one that I was gonna do some work on, and that's in regards to the tariffs and fentanyl and immigration, or whatever you wanna call it. But one of the things that we used to have here at the borders was a program called the IBIT program, which is the Integrated Border Enforcement Teams. We haven't had those in British Columbia for some period of time, and it's always been a collaborative initiative between the US and Canada, and involved RCMP and exchange of information around activities within border areas. And I think it's important for the provincial government to be advocating to the feds that IBIT programs get reinstated. And the thing for me about this isn't just about tariffs or Trump or whatever, it's the fact that we have leaky borders, and if there are issues with fentanyl and other illicit drugs going either way across the border, anything that we can do to tighten up security at the border helps our population, like it helps our people. Like I don't see this as, I'm doing this because I gotta do something for the Americans. To me, if we can get better border security and port security and other things, then I think that's a benefit to all residents of British Columbia in terms of trying to decrease the importation and exportation of illicit substances. So again, just to reinforce getting the IBIT teams back that work along the border, because it's very problematic that those have been gone for a number of years now.
Should that not be an FCM resolution?
Well, it probably is an FCM resolution, but because the provincial government is talking about this and it involves RCMP, and I would imagine there's some probably provincial oversight or communication, I think it's just the fact that we have to get it started. And so whether or not the resolution says that the UBCM through their channels then advocates to the federal government, like as opposed to like FCM, and then we could also send this, we don't really do resolutions to FCM, but this would be
Could do one.
Did those IBID teams stop happening when marijuana was legalized? Because I remember them
From your,
Oh, you do, Dan. I don't know whether it was with legalization, because what was really interesting is that today on the call, somebody in Eastern Canada was talking about how successful their IBIT team was. So we legalized marijuana across Canada.
But in this area, maybe that was the last time we saw
I think it,
black helicopter or whatever.
Yeah, a Black Hawk, well, I don't think that, I mean, and it's not all about that. I mean, it's about on the, it's very interesting. You should have a discussion one time with Mayor DeBoon from Creston, who spent his career as a conservation officer. And his area, of course, included the border and not only drugs, but actually illegal immigrants coming across fields in our area. So
That January 6th rider that was snowboarding in Whistler
oh, was
across
it?
the Saskatchewan border, some prairie ditch somewhere.
but anyways, that was the other one that I'm trying to work on and make sure that we get the right direction on, so.
Can I hearing this raised one thing, one potential resolution for me, but also another thought. So I'll start with the thought. So I'm just looking at Minister Anderson's mandate letter, and it specifically addresses a number of the ones, like, okay, this is her mandate: grow the economy by creating good jobs across British Columbia, doing innovative new sectors, emerging sectors, that kind of thing. So we'll come back to that one in a second. The second one is reduce cost for families, and that's related to rental housing stock and housing related issues. Strengthen healthcare by expanding access to doctors, so it's a transportation to health issue. And then
You're reading the general,
standard,
you're reading the standard introduction.
Oh, okay,
Her points,
so-
when you get this, she got two bullets, she actually does have something in her mandate letter.
right, so okay, then that's even better because it underlines sort of the standard provincial policy. So we should maybe consider referencing it, but either way, in her mandate letter, she is the key point of contact for local governments. Remember, she was saying that she was gonna spend a lot of time working with UBCM directly, but
Yeah.
hell, if she's the key point of contact for local governments, we should have dinner with her. We should organize a dinner and present all
Well, she'd
the
have to,
resolutions
well, she'd have to
directly
be
to
here,
her.
but I've discussed,
Yeah.
I've discussed some of these issues with her. We've been on the phone, and I've also sent out a request, and I have not heard back. I'm actually a bit disappointed, to Steve Morissetti, because he's the parliamentary what is he?
Secretary?
He's a secretary to
Parliamentary
rural affairs.
Okay.
And so nobody seems to be talking. I guess they figure they don't have to start till the 17th of February when they finally sit.
So, okay, so that, as the key point of contact, I thought, well, like, whatever resolutions we come up with, if we put that work into it, we should definitely sit down and present them to her directly. Cause she can just bypass everything, go right to the premier with them. But as far as the resolution I was thinking about, on the notion of the economy, we hadn't talked about that in terms of economic diversification. One of the things we should be promoting, this comes back to something Councillor Page mentioned earlier about tourism. Like, this is maybe the opportunity to really lean in to, and Brittany was previously the parliamentary secretary for tourism, so she understands this file pretty well. We should really lean into something related to promoting the tourism, outdoor recreation, and various tourism for rural communities like Nelson. Like, something to that effect to get more investment into supporting that sector. And I'm thinking about a lot of our rec complex stuff can be framed in terms of broader tourism, especially if, you know, tournaments coming from the US could be here, maybe conferences that we can have so to support the development of, you know, the infrastructure.
Give it a whirl. You're good at.
He's telling me to fire.
Well, no,
ChatGPT.
I mean, we have some time, so add that to, I've just written here that there could be another one on economic diversification. I'm willing to, you know, consider
You guys want,
anything.
do you want to think on this, reducing, you know, our interprovincial
Yeah, that would be
Barriers?
another great one.
On the healthcare side?
No,
interprovincial trade barriers.
interprovincial trade barriers.
I was on a webinar about that today, and The Economist was not saying that that's gonna do much for us, so I'm interested in hearing how you feel that would be a
Oh,
benefit.
I'd be interested to know what the economist that you were on, and I should get the name of some of mine because 3 or 4
Berkeley
now.
from the CCPA.
Yeah, a number of people that I've talked to have said that if we could get rid of the trade barriers, that we'd probably almost match the 25% that we're gonna end up the other way. So depends which side of the coin you're
Yeah.
talking to, because I also read the CCPA information as well, so it's kind of an interesting dichotomy
When
there.
you say the trade barriers.
Yeah.
Top 3,
Wine.
okay, alcohol, you know,
You know what?
purchasing, procurement policy.
They're funny because they're not necessarily always trade barriers, but there's
Trucking was one.
trucking is a really big one. There's like trucking
Weights and
rules.
standards.
The weights and standards thing, it's like, you know, I can have a double B train, I have a B train there, and I can't have it there, and I can have a C train in that province. I mean, like, it's goofy craziness to drive across the country if you're a commercial trucker.
Okay, 3, good.
Oh my God.
Not everything needs 3, but I just feel there must be another one out there.
Yep.
I just keep hearing the broad term, and I just wanna.
In Quebec, the non-Quebec students have to pay more in post-secondary. That's a interprovincial thing. It's not what you're talking about, but it's one trade barriers.
Well, healthcare portability and
Bring my book that I
education
made.
portability, the
Yep.
charter rights would be one of those where.
Oh, it might just be the language one. I could be wrong. I could have got that wrong.
Okay,
Yeah,
no,
I
fair
could have
enough.
got that wrong.
So the third one is skills, trade, and the transferability of different.
Yeah.
Professionals, so.
I mean, every time, like, as a physical therapist, I have to register in each province. And in some provinces, they might decide that I need to take some kind of upgrading skill.
But then I think that also goes hand in hand with cross-jurisdictional disciplinary systems.
Well, but it's all
that are
kinds of them, but
affected,
I know for a fact, for my own profession, that I can't just hop, skip, and jump to the next
You can
province
go-
and
Is
just,
that a trade issue? That's a
So-
mobility issue, is that under trade?
Yeah, it's skilled work.
skilled work.
I'm
Co-pilot
interested.
gives you
Oh, okay, there we go.
interprovincial trade barriers in Canada can be quite significant, even though there are no tariffs between provinces. Here are the top 3 types of barriers: regulatory differences, provincial protectionism, licensing, and paperwork. So I
Okay.
think it all speaks to these things that we were talking about that are,
Yeah,
you know,
I can't get
it's
a license.
not super tangible, like, you know, we don't allow, you know, BC whatever into, I know that they have stuff like that, but the
Vehicle
bigger
inspections?
barriers are
So
these
the
things.
so the restrictions are alcohol, dairy, and agricultural products.
Yeah.
And you're right, different regulations in each province. So infrastructure. Infrastructure and transportation and efficiencies, labor mobility, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
Different
so
professionals.
That's where I fit into.
Thank you.
is
I just
like-
wanted to know how that
Professional
fit in.
Yeah.
certification
Certifications.
requirements in each province. So all those things are.
Yeah, I can't go to another province without a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, we heard that with teachers and nurses.
We have lots.
Well, teachers, I think was out
Well,
of
I know,
some
I've
of
heard,
it.
I just,
No, it's a good question.
No, that would be an interesting one to bring forward then.
So I have 12 on this
I
list.
just emailed one to everybody.
Okay. So anyway, so we'll put that into the thing, is about the economic diversification?
Okay, cause I have that down. Do you wanna hear the list? And then we need a resolution, unless there's anything else. So there's civics education in secondary schools, rural transportation, this is called something.
Rural transit,
Rural trans,
and then rural health transportation.
rural. Is that what it's called?
I think that's what we went to, because we wanted to have it, we were trying to make it health specific there.
Okay,
Looks good.
perfect. And then first past the post voting system, water security, repeat offenders, homeless population and police resources.
That needs some work.
Yep, regional approach to homelessness, detox and rehab beds system, integrated border enforcement team, economic diversification, tourism, interprovincial trade barriers. That's it, that's 12.
Well, that's good. I mean, there'll only be 15 there and we'll just debate our own
So-
resolution.
Get this one?
Did you say the one I sent, Sarah?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
said,
I got economic, she put it in there,
Economic
economic.
diversification.
Looks great.
Diversification.
And then you can send that,
Put in something
you
super
send
like.
I sent it to you.
Yes,
Okay.
put something in, JP, let's hear it, woo!
speak to it.
No, I can't,
Yeah.
He's,
You have to go
I know what
to
he's
the-
putting in, he's putting in, send no resolutions to AKBLG.
I love how we're
And
going.
AKBLG.
So I just got a little bit like last year, I guess, beaten down by the vibe and didn't bother saying anything when this happened. Because it came clear to me that 80% of the people in the room were speculating on real estate, so this wasn't gonna pass. But I still think that it was put forward by New Denver, and I just found it again, because I've been thinking about it, but I haven't found it again. So I'll just read it from last year. Whereas a significant number of Kootenay and boundary homes in rural municipalities are owned by absentee landowners as vacant seasonal properties, and whereas a speculation in vacancy tax is designed to turn vacant homes into housing for people in British Columbia and collect revenue for housing initiatives where the tax applies, therefore be it resolved that AKBLG urge the provincial government to expand the speculation and vacancy tax across the municipalities in the Kootenay and boundary regions. I think it's an issue, and I'm open to feedback from all of you about how to make the wording resonate with people better. The reason I didn't stand up last time was because it was pretty clear by the time that I was gonna stand up that this was going nowhere, because literally most of the people in the room had a house they were flipping. So, it's a tough crowd in that sense, and it's a tough demographic. Like, the politicians are a tough demographic to get this sort of thing over on generally. But I think it would make a difference in our town.
So that failed, right?
It did fail, yeah.
Okay, well, let's try it again.
New Denver.
That was New Denver last year.
Do you wanna try to give municipalities the rights to
Maybe
implement that?
that would be something that in a if that's a realistic thing, like legally, that
Well, while you're at it, we could take the vote of the house away too.
Yeah.
The house can vote.
The,
I want it to
Can we have it
pass,
so
so
was municipalities think, I mean,
I think
the whole thing is Vancouver gets away with all that kind of stuff because they have their Vancouver charter, so,
they create the regime, you can choose to adopt the regime or not.
yeah, it just seemed to me that the provincial government has picked all of the communities that would fall under that, but.
Well, they're
Well, by
saying
their
these ones
criteria.
must.
So it's an additional, in effect, it would be an additional tax on vacation homes. Is that kind of the gist of it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, or an
And I think if you-
expanded tax if a
Can we-
tax already.
And I think if you add, and that money comes to the local municipality,
For like, if we have a housing, an affordable housing fund, or we have we're asking for more resources to deal with the homeless population. If this is contributing to the homeless population, then we can make it work.
Yeah. The, I don't know, let's see if, maybe staff can help with
The wording.
making the wording a little bit better.
Did you find that?
I don't
maybe?
have it, but I've got New Denver, so we'll find it. And I
can,
just called it speculation housing and vacancy tax in rural communities.
Yeah.
And it's on the list.
It's in the package that we were given
Last year.
last
Do you
year.
know what, are the pages numbered?
Yeah, 51,
Page 51,
the end of the page.
the AKBLG package.
Okay, there we go, 13, lucky
So there's
13.
You know, we rarely get over 30. If you push it a little harder, then the challenge would be get them all passed.
Well, you know, the whole thing is it's there to have some good conversation, and I think all of these are, and I think that they're all broad. I mean, to me, it's like, I have a difficulty when it's like, we need money to fix the ditch in the backyard. No, that's not even an AKBLG resolution, right? That's,
A good resolution.
so I think that these are some good resolutions. We'll look at them again, maybe we'll decide, okay, we're gonna go with 10, so we'll vote and drop 3 off or something, I mean, or maybe it's all 13 will go.
Did I hear you right that we have another meeting on the 21st? Cause it's
Well, that's
not
our
on the
regular,
calendar.
that's our regular, meeting? Isn't it the 21st is our next meeting?
18th.
Or 18th, sorry,
The 18th, right? Okay.
sorry, I got my calendar open, it's 18, yeah, the next regular, so we will be meeting on the 18th, and that will be,
There will be a special meeting, right?
and there'll be a special meeting, cause that's the cow, but just to deal with this work, and then we'll be able to get it sent off. So hopefully when we see them on the 18th, there won't be too many changes, and then they can be sent.
And I'll just say that they'll be completed, the resolutions will be in your package, your agenda, so you can look at them beforehand.
yeah,
And if there's any changes, let us know or let Sonia know, and she'll make the change, and then you'll be able to look at them finally again and then vote on whether they're good enough to go. If they're what you want. So that'd be great if you could let us know ahead of time.
I
Yeah,
think the
if
main
you-
thing is the intent.
Yeah, just really watch the therefore be it resolves, that we don't have too many conflicting or different ideas, or try to keep those down to one basic concept. And then, so the package it will come out on Thursday night or Friday. If you can at least before the committee of the whole, if you can't get through the whole package, read those resolutions, and if you see something, you could over the weekend send that in, and then Sonia would even have it on the Monday before the meeting, except for the fact that's a statutory holiday.
She'll. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the only
I,
problem.
well,
We don't,
maybe
we don't
we'll
have
be
the
able to
one
put
working
them
day
together in February sometime, and then she can send them out
as an email,
as an email, yeah.
that might be even better, and then you can give some feedback before that. Okay, last call,
Oh, wait.
resolutions for AKBLG?
Okay, sorry. I was like, no, we need a mover in a second. Gotcha. I'm ready.
Anybody else? Anything else? Not to say that we wouldn't contemplate another late one, but that's what we do. Okay, so if we could have a recommendation, could we have a motion to consider for consideration the 13 resolutions that have been discussed tonight to go forward to AKBLG? I have a mover,
Didn't we have, oh, no, we didn't, okay.
Councillor Lockenberg, seconder, Councillor Woodward. All those in favor, and that carries. Thank you, council. Good work. Okay. Moving on, we are now on minutes and reports. So we have a number of items to receive for information. We have the Cultural Development Committee minutes, Nelson Public Library, and the Nelson Housing Committee. Is there anything that anybody wants to pull out, or does somebody want to move all 3 items for receipt for information? Councillor Woodward?
Move.
All 3?
Yes.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Lochinvar? Any concerns, questions, anything? Okay, all those in favor? And that carries. Okay, moving on to reports. We have a number of reports. Finance, Development Services, Administration, and Development Services. Is there anything there that anybody wants to pull out? If not, does somebody wanna move all 4 items for information? That's been moved. Is there a seconder? Councilor Pinero, sorry. And any discussion or concerns? You know, we could change seats, you know, like for the second half of the 4 years, we could, you know. Oh, gosh, you guys are great. All those in favor?
We are great.
We did that, and
We
that,
really are great.
and that carries. Okay, there is no, no, anybody got a notice of motion? Seeing none, there was no late items. So moving on to item 15, a resolution closing the meeting to the public. That it is the opinion of the council that the public interest requires that persons other than members of council and staff and any approved audiences be excluded from this meeting, and the meeting of council continues under section 91A and E on matters regarding the following: personal information about an identifiable individual whose holder is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could be reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Pinero. All those in favor? And that carries. Okay.
Just need a minute, please.
Oh yeah, our meeting minutes.
They weren't out today.
They weren't out.
Okay.